just she snuck all up on me, and I was unaware I was going live quite so soon. So perhaps every good news, ladies and gentlemen. Sasquatch went on a gremlin hunt, and I think it's been completely successful. What are the humans doing?
Do you think you're ready? Can you handle the truth? Or are you in denial and demanding more proof? They demonstrate in real time how they're spinning you lies, but no one pays attention, no one opens their eyes. They walk around like zombies with their head in the mobiles, signaling their virtues with a pick on their profile. Yeah. Signaling their virtues with a pick on their profile. So if you think you're ready, you don't need more proof. Conspiracy deniers are denying the truth. They fabricate our problems and pretend to provide the best solution, but we all know they lie. They lied about the weapons and they lied about health. They lied about the fact that they're transferring the wealth. You should really notice how they're pushing the fear. Keep everybody terrified and not thinking clear. Yeah. Everybody's not thinking clear. Yeah. Keep everybody terrified. Yeah, thinking and not thinking. Keep everybody terrified and not thinking clear. When you do, you realize that this is their trick. It's getting really stupid now, they're taking the mick. Said, do you think you're ready? Can you handle the truth? Or are you in denial and demanding more proof? They demonstrate in real time how they're spinning you lies, but no one pays attention, no one opens their eyes. They walk around like zombies with their head in the mobiles, signaling their virtues with a pick on their profile. Yeah. Signaling their virtues on their profile. Hey.
That tickles me to no end. What's up, AJ?
What's up? You kind of just put me out there.
Yeah, you're lucky I didn't pull this knot. You know how I'd be being, right? Oh, yep, there you go. We got a brand new intro. Gonna do it. All right. So what did I name this madness? Oh yeah, right. You ever seen a bog move?
Play AC and incredible armor.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a bog move?
No.
You're going to tonight, baby. You're the most redneck toe party you ever saw in your life. And I'm surprised. And in fact, I would be very surprised that they weren't a whole bunch of Bud Lights and a bunch of steaks cooked out there while they were doing it, because it looks like tons of fun.
Bud Lights? Are
Really
you sure
amazing.
Bud Lights?
This whole event predated that whole story.
Okay.
Pretty sure. Actually, I'm going to try to leave that down there and see how it plays out. If it starts kicking me out of stuff, we'll know that I haven't got it fixed yet. But hey, my last show went off without a hitch. Yeah, no, you're not in the intro. You're correct. You are right. But do you want to know why? For some strange reason, all of the after darks you've been in, you're either you never came on camera in my after darks, but like twice. Anyway, you're almost always in a snap filter thing. So I got all kinds of crazy imagery of you, brother, but it's wacky. My favorite one was the cowboy, though. What's happening, truth be told? Let's do that thing. Let's go ahead and give out them things. Let's see. You don't count because you're here. So Scotty Waddles gets the silver, and Izzy gets the bronze. Welcome in. It's good to see you.
I'm always gold, so it don't matter.
Russell Sperry, good to see you, bud. Toe for life, as always. My favorite sparkle son. He's a real man's man. That's my baby daddy over there. Y'all be careful with him. Take care of that man. Protect him at all costs. You got the gold. I think so, actually. Did she get the gold? Yeah, y'all can rewind back and find out. How about that? All right, so Captain Curmudgeon has something to say about it. Are you ready?
Ready.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
All right.
75 episode history of this program, we have striven to elevate one core principle above all others. And that is that we always call things what they are, even and especially when it's something the audience might not necessarily want to hear. I'm not going to call this a trigger warning because, frankly, if you were the type of person who requires trigger warnings, you wouldn't be watching this channel in the first place. But there will undoubtedly be those among you for whom what I am about to say will hit rather uncomfortably close to home. And if you get offended by it, tough. That's your problem. I don't apologize. Because it's like I have been telling my kids all their lives. No one can cause you offense. Being offended is a choice that you make for yourself. If someone says a thing and you get your knickers in a twist over it, you have that person with that power over you. And I think that's just about long enough of a disclaimer. So let's get down to the brass tacks, shall we? Here it comes. If you give the slightest inkling of a good goddamn about this stupid Republican debate that's happening this week, stop. Because you are part of the problem. Why are you part of the problem? Well, I want you to take a look at the nearest calendar. Because it is currently August of 2023. The presidential election is in November of 2024. From now, in other words. 445 days, if you want to put it in even starker terms. And if you've been following American politics longer than 5 minutes, there's something you already know about presidential elections. And that is that nothing ever happens in a non-election year in a debate that makes a single damn bit of difference in what winds up happening in the election itself. The only thing that ever happens the year before the election is that some of the candidates wind up slitting their own throats, shooting themselves in the foot, kicking themselves in the balls, pick whichever metaphor you prefer. And they wind up having to drop out of the race before the election year ever arrives, just like we were talking about last week with Gary Hart and Joe Biden. Back in 1987, one guy got exposed as a philanderer. The other guy got exposed as a serial plagiarist who lies about pretty much every single detail of his entire life. And for Joe Biden, that's a regrettable habit that only has gotten worse instead of better as the decades have gone on. At least, that's what Corn Pop and Nelson Mandela told me. But when those guys had to drop out of the race, it wasn't because of anything somebody said in a debate. In 1987, it would have seemed completely absurd to everyone, Democrat, Republican, and otherwise, to be having debates when it's still the summer of the year before the election year, because it is completely absurd. And sure, sometimes these things provide a couple moments that make for some interesting television, something mildly entertaining, especially in 2016 with Trump on the stage. I'm not going to pretend I didn't find that stuff amusing. But did it have the slightest bit of bearing on who wound up with the nomination or who wound up in the White House? No, it did not. Everybody complains all the time, correctly, about the fact that we don't seem to have any non-election season anymore. We just sort of drift from one election season directly into the next one. And who made things that way? Well, we did, by paying attention to debates that happened 15 months before the damn election, by tuning in and giving ratings to the fake news sludge factories that produced the freaking things, by listening to radio hosts and podcasters who drone on for hours and hours about debates and poll numbers when we are so far out from the election that you've almost still got time to knock up your wife, get the baby delivered, then knock and get that baby delivered before it's time to actually go to the polls. By paying attention to this garbage, you give a lot of people exactly what they want. You contribute to the continuation of the 150-year stranglehold that these two corrupt idiot parties have had on the political life of your country. You contribute to the survival of legacy media fake news organizations that ought to have died at least 20 years ago. Here's a news flash. Not one single person on that debate stage tomorrow is ever going to be the president. And in their heart of hearts, they all know it. For some of them, they're hoping to position themselves to maybe be Trump's running mate. For others, and I'm looking at you, Hutchinson and Christie, they just want their faces on television, and they are willing to say and do absolutely anything if that reward is potentially in the cards. Those two jackasses in particular are so in love with the red light on the TV camera, it would even make Tony Fauci blush. All they want from life is to spend the next Trump administration as trained SEAL CNN contributors who get trotted out to read lines off a teleprompter about how very awful the bad orange president is. But we are going to talk about debates tonight, and if that makes the host a hypocritical bastard, I guess that's fine. Because it just so happens that today, or yesterday by the time you're watching this, is the 165th anniversary of the first Lincoln-Douglas debate, and there is much about the story of those debates that serves as an illustration of just how brain-dead and ignorant and intellectually benighted we are compared to the people who lived in Illinois in 1858. Jim Eagle, hit the music.
All right. So here's the thing about the debate. There is nothing good that can occur. Absolutely nothing beneficial to either the party or the people involved can possibly occur during this debate. The only possible event that could take place is something to go wrong for someone, for them to say the inappropriate thing, the quiet part out loud. And that's really what everybody's waiting on, right? So tune in for the bloodfest, but beyond that, I don't think it'll have any bearing on an election at all. Not this one, not the next one, none. Ever. All right. So about that bog, right? So before we get too far in here, let me do this thing. This is called Air Fox Photography. And there's his link. He's got a whopping like 800 subscribers, but he's doing some really cool stuff. Now, it's not groundbreaking by any stretch of the imagination, but I've never seen a bog moved. Have you?
No.
Well,
I don't think I know what the fuck a bog is.
Okay. So if I'm not mistaken, a bog by definition is any mass that is sufficiently waterlogged to support bog-style plants, right?
Okay.
So you're talking most swamps would be considered a bog, except they typically have a little bit more water. Marshes are salty or brackish at least, and decided to full on making contact for my dream and directing. Content. Okay, I'm sorry. I got distracted by English.
It says contact.
All right, so you see this island here, right?
Yep.
All right, so let's see. You can't see that. All right. Anyway, that's not an island. That is a mass of grass and vegetable matter that has accumulated at the mouth of this overflow, and it's blocking the water from leaving the lake and threatening all the other overflows in the lake, right? So they had to move it. Did they call the Army Corps of Engineers? No. They called Bubba and his drunk friends. Look at these boats. You see this? Now, this reminds me back in the day of sometimes we'd have farmers around here who'd have entire swaths of their land completely swallowed by a beaver dam. Some entrepreneurial beaver downstream build a dam, build it up a little higher, and then a little bit higher. And the next thing you know, he's lost 70 acres.
Are the boats like trying to move it?
Yeah.
Oh, shut up.
Now, this is, of course, all time lapsed.
Right.
But I love it. I absolutely love it.
That is awesome.
Isn't it?
That is like ingenious.
Right. It's phenomenal. I mean, the idea. Now, my first thought was, I wonder how much they want for that island. Could you imagine putting your little shed out on that thing?
My first thought is, how long till it ends up where it just was?
Well, if you want,
depends on how far they move it out.
Right. If they can get it outside of that little corner that it has washed itself into,
right,
it may not come back.
That is so cool.
Isn't it, though? And they're just going to manhandle this thing out with a bunch of bass boats.
That's neat.
There ain't no tug in there. There's probably 1,100 horsepower stretched out across all of them.
Like what genius thought of that? Drunk genius, whatever.
Well, it comes down to the fact that apparently this has happened before in this location, but typically before, and I don't remember whether this is Canada or America, but before the Army Corps of Engineers, their version of it would show up, blast it into pieces, and drag it out into the lake to either sink or up into a cove somewhere where somebody wanted some land, right? But apparently they don't do that kind of stuff anymore because of the conservation angle on a lot of this stuff. And so the way these things form is vegetable matter is washed down and soaked into the ground. Trees grow into that vegetable matter, and methane bubbles up inside the ground and is kept in place by the vegetable matter on top. There'll be a soaked layer right across the top, and the methane makes it buoyant, and it detaches from the bottom, not from the bank, right? It floats up and floats away. Right. So if you go out there and you jump around on it and you beat it up and maybe throw a couple of sticks of dynamite here and there inside it, it'll sink. But you don't necessarily want it to sink right here because it's probably only about 3 foot deep there.
Right.
So you push it somewhere where it won't cause a problem. In this case, it looks like that little cove.
Could anybody claim that as their land?
Yeah, no, that was my first question, is how much do they want for a cabin on it? I mean, like,
right. I mean, I guess it would
sales, dude.
Plan, right?
A couple of sales and some patience. We go anywhere. Land of the trembling earth, my dick. I'll show you some trembling earth. Anyway, I just thought this was really cool when I stumbled across it. And the part that's cool to me is it's not a bunch of trained engineers and
right.
You know what I mean? These guys, this appears to be a boating club who got together to do this.
But where are they trying to put it? Like, I thought, like you were saying, out there, but it doesn't look like it.
Well, there's twice as many boats pushing from that direction as there is from this direction.
Oh, they're trying to flip it.
They've got to keyhole it out. So they're going to try to spin it around so they can put the narrow end out and hopefully get it all the way out.
That's like really cool.
Or they're just showing off. I mean, a bunch of redneck bubbles. I imagine there's more bullets than teeth on them boats. And I'm just guessing. But if there wasn't a steak cooked on that island during this process, they're not human.
Right?
You know there was a full-blown party on that thing. I mean, what would you do?
So, what was the beginning time?
That was a 12-hour. That was like a 9-hour day.
Oh, okay.
Stop it. Did it go to the next one already? Oh yeah, it did. All right. So this one's got a little bit of a point to it.
You don't have the ending, like where they ended it, or it's
that was it for that day. I don't have the ending. The link for the channels in.
Look,
in,
man, I'm back here. I'm not in there.
That's the whole point, though, is for you to go look at some other crap that they did, yo.
Okay.
You never notice we almost never finish videos?
I know, but that one was really, really interesting. Like, I really, really wanted to see it. What's up, old guy?
What's up, Mitch? Good to see you, buddy. We're missing everybody over here in chat. I've been babbling for a minute. Looks like a foot.
Oh, and Princess OPD stopped by.
Oh, meow.
Yeah, meow.
Awesome. No. It's currently Princess OPD new song Little Girl Jazz Game Utah.
Little Girl versus Jazz Game.
Oh, Little Girl, yeah. Little Girl versus Jazz Game Utah. She's a perfect example of the types of YouTube channels I can't stand. Not because of her content, but because her name changes every 16 hours. It's like, why? But okay, whatever. Right, we're there. We're doing the thing. That's happening. I need the link. That's what I was doing. Why you let me slip up like that?
I think the auditor got you already.
Oh, he's already doed it.
Yep, he did. Because he's the bomb.
The call of history. All right, so now this creator's link is pinned. Feel free to go tell him Sasquatch sent you. It'll confuse the shit out of him. That generally tickles me. I mean, I had no idea what you're talking about.
Tiny wants that island, Todd said.
They claim it. It's close enough to the internet. Dude, that's at a lake somewhere. Hang on. They might actually own it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Out to a sweep spot and drop a bunch of anchors.
Right.
Dude, all you need to do is throw a little bit of a kudzu on it. It'll be a permanent feature wherever it lands. You'll never get it. For those of y'all unfamiliar with kudzu, it's a friend to the earth. Yeah. That's how they sold it back in like the 20s.
Important in war, to kill as many enemies as possible or to stay alive. Logic says to kill as many enemies as possible, but your instincts will make you worry about your own safety first. Therefore, throughout history, people have gone to great lengths to protect themselves in battle, creating many unique and unusual pieces of armor. For example, the earliest known armor used by humans was made from animal skins and was used as far back as 40,000 years ago. The hides were usually treated with tannins or other natural substances to make them more durable and resistant to water. Prehistoric hunters usually wore this type of armor to protect themselves from animal attacks and other dangers. But when people began to fight other people,
let me tell you, throw a little bit of kudzu out there right in the middle. The next time that thing makes landfall, you got about 72 hours to save it. If you wait 72 hours, that shit would be so tangled up in the trees around the edge of it, dude. That much water, it would be endless. It'd be like throwing a nuclear bomb in the middle of that pond. It'd be ridiculous. A friend to the earth. You know why they said that, right? Mm-hmm. At the time, they were just coming like through the middle part of the Great Depression, and the Dust Bowl was like currently rampant, and the South and Midwest were looking for anything that would stop the dirt from moving, and kudzu would grow anywhere and would stabilize soils in a way that grass just couldn't do quick enough, but kudzu could. And so it was a miracle weed that was carted all over the Southeast and planted and transplanted again until better farming practices were what ended the Dust Bowl, not kudzu. But there is a desert in Georgia, partly because of kudzu. It has derived so much nitrogen from the soil that nothing, not even kudzu, can grow in it. It's not a wet desert. It is a nutrition desert. It's nuts. We also have canyons, but that's a different story.
The hides alone were no longer enough. Spears and arrows easily pierced rudimentary armor. The man had to think up other ways to protect himself. In the absence of easy-to-melt metals, some isolated nations came up with such sophisticated armor that even the game's Skyrim armor designer could envy their imagination. Now, we'll tell you how people on various islands used to make helmets out of fish, and why rifles couldn't even pierce
That was
body
a
armor
blowfish?
by Alaskan people, and what armor is considered the
Yep. Hobie got a dried blowfish helmet.
Oh, that's too funny.
And there's lamellar armor made by 15th century peasants in China that regularly stand up to modern firearms. It is a construction method that involves basically honeycombed pieces of paper and bamboo. And it's like this thick, but you can put like a modern handgun bullet into it and it stops it. It just deforms to the point that it catches it, just like a modern Kevlar vest. Same premise with arrows.
What's up, ATL?
Hey, ATL. What time is it? Oh, he might still be pretty sober. He's good.
Have you had your tea?
Have you had your tea? That Colombian marching tea you got over there, bud? I'm kind of pissed I didn't get any of that tea when I visited. Instead, my man started shoving vodka, like really excellent vodka, down my throat.
Good morning, honey. It's not good morning.
That stuff's good for two things: degreasing engine blocks and killing brain cells.
pinnacle of evolution.
Wouldn't
Isaac Brugere, a surgeon, spent much of the mid-19th century in Fiji, running cotton plantations and collecting local artifacts.
Damn right you do.
But he never set foot in what is now the
And
island
that's what
nation
she
of
said.
Kiribati, some 1,300 miles from Fiji. And when he brought back this amazing artifact from there, no one could figure out what it was. But collectors told him that he had purchased a unique helmet made from dried, inflated fugu fish, with a lining woven from coconut fiber and human hair. Dozens of these helmets were later found on the islands of Kiribati, many of which were donated to British museums. Some researchers argue
Oh, now hold on. They're making that shit up. They're making that. It's Kiribati, found on the island of Kiribati. The what was it? The yogi fish. Fugu fish. Yeah. See, here's the thing. I can't tell if they're just making crap up to make it sound interesting, or if it's a legitimate thing.
Is that what a blowfish is?
That's a
called?
blowfish. It's a fugu. Yep. Just headbutt them with the spines. I wonder if anybody ever tried to make one out of a stonefish. Just headbutt them with the spines in that case, and it kills them dead 3 weeks later.
3 weeks.
Well, I mean, vengeance is mine, saith the asshole. His arrows in a dead pig carcass. All I got to do is scratch your ass, and this son bitch you're going down, bud. I'll injure all 6 of you. I'll injure all 6 of you and run away. By the time that fever hits, I'll be back. Evil.
What is a rockfish?
Stonefish, yeah, rockfish. They're the frogfish. They're all part toadfish. They're all sort of related, or maybe the same fish. I don't know. I think it's just different colors. But they have this spine on their back that has venom, not unlike a coral snake.
Uh-huh.
It's real nasty. Like it kills 10 or 12 people a year.
Where are these fish at?
Pretty much every coast of on Earth, as far as I know. They're the reason you wear shoes in the ocean.
I don't wear shoes in the ocean, but I guess I should.
They're the reason you wear shoes in the ocean now. That you know.
Neurotoxins.
Yeah, your ass is dead for you float to the surface, man. Fuck up.
Oh. Hi, bye, Snark and Snaff.
Hi, bye. Hi, bye.
They say Fuji makes your mouth kind of numb and tingly.
Rule 304 says it was like 20, 30 minutes maybe. Homie went, hey, chick, come here.
That they were part of a broader armor tradition unique to the islands. The complete set consisted of a cuirass with a high tailpiece, segmented sleeves, and a jumpsuit made of coconut fibers, often inlaid with patterns woven from human hair. Some also included a belt made of dried stingray skin, and as weapons, the Aborigines used a wooden sword inlaid with shark teeth.
All right, I want you to imagine you're a sailor in the 14th century, and you come up to this beautiful paradisical island over here, and when you pull up, there's a handful of guys out there in a canoe, and you hop off your big ass boat into your little whaler boat, and you row your ass in with a little team of folks with some muskets. One of these fuckers pulls out a 7.5 foot long sword covered megalodon teeth, right? And your response is to go, "How y'all doing?" I find it hard to believe that.
Yeah, I have the musket. They have the sword with the teeth. I mean,
yeah, you're not wrong. You might even have 6 guys with muskets. The thing is, every single one of them subbitches has got one of them little sticks.
Right.
There's like 150 of them, and more coming every second. Because look at the weird white guys.
I mean, by the time you shoot it off and then have to reload, they kill you.
Good Civil War to a Revolutionary War to Civil War rate was 3 shots a minute, dude. Some folks could really throw them things out.
Dang.
I couldn't do it. I've tried. I have put effort in trying to do 3 shots a minute, and the best I could do safely.
Safely, guys. Safely.
I like my fingers and stuff. I'm not planning on losing them tonight. Safely. Anyway. Hello and goodbye. Right.
Speculated that the islanders developed this armor because they were particularly warlike and severely under-resourced. Thus, they needed to avenge insults and defend honor with 2 things they had in abundance: coconuts and seafood.
Coconut.
The Aikiri body also made spears, swords, and even knuckles from such materials as shark teeth and stingray spikes. But unfortunately, there is no evidence that they fought more than other people of the region who did not invent similar armor and weapons. New research has shown that although the armor was intimidating, it was impractical in battle. And modern anthropologists estimate
intimidating? I guess back then that was intimidating, but
intimidating,
it looks
yes.
redonkulous right now.
But they're missing a factor in their warfare. All right. So they're talking about primitive tribes fighting slightly less primitive tribes, right? These guys put together a little bit of armor. Your average knife thrust, poke, thrown pellet, spear, and most importantly, bees and wasps were used to protect the perimeter of primitive villages. You would bring beehives close by the settlement, but not in it, because you didn't want them stinging the people in the settlement. You wanted them around the edge. And anytime there was attack, you just threw a rock at one of the beehives. It pisses them off, and nobody's going over there for a little while.
We all watch, My Girl, right?
Exactly. And so another trick they would do is they would make these little fake Ouija people, right? These Wicca soldiers, and they would stand them up with hollow pumpkins on their head, or hollowed out turnips or whatever for a head, put a hat on them, just like this dude you see right here, right? But in it would be a hornet's nest.
Oh, okay.
They would cultivate a hornet's nest inside a pumpkin or something like that, so that when the enemies came up and started attacking, you'd stand all your people up side by side. the people handling the pumpkins would be some of the people in the front line to kind of keep people back from the wrong spots, not trigger these guys until it's ready. But as soon as they would attack, the armored folks would fall back. The pumpkins would be broken. Then that whole line over there is pretty much secure until those hornets calm the fuck down. You can flank around the end with your entire force instead of trying to hold the line over here. Depending on, most of your wooden forts were typically built in highly humid and cloudy areas. Like your actual castle, like Mott and Bailey style things, were in Europe, were in like Northern Europe, Northern Great Britain. A whole bunch of them were in Scotland and stuff. And those are really, really wet places to start with. So fire wasn't as big a threat to a wet building as it is to a very, very dry building like you would get out west.
You should say moist instead of wet.
Moist. You're correct. I do apologize for my lack of forethought.
I just love to hear you say it.
Create a complete set, as well as constant efforts to maintain it. Otherwise, it would immediately begin to lose its integrity. And helmets made of fugu fish would have been shattered by a single hard blow, which is hard to disagree with. So unfortunately, most scholars are inclined to believe that this kind of armor had a ritual significance or was just needed to intimidate the opponents.
Right.
And some suggest that this was a mere fake, a souvenir to attract as many people as possible to visit the islands.
And the only thing that makes me want to add is more with chunks.
Ew.
Following armor was definitely not a fake. And perhaps it was one of the first armors that protected almost the warrior's entire body, although it certainly looked more like a huge bucket. This armor is known as the Dendra Panoply, named so because of the discovery of the earliest of these fascinating specimens in the village of Dendra in Argolida. The warrior's armor design was developed in the late Mycenaean period, after the 15th century BC. It was probably used by elite members of the Mycenaean army, who rode chariots into battle. The uncovered specimen in question consists of 15 sheets of embossed bronze fastened with leather straps. The main cuirass consisted of 2 pieces, for the front and back of the torso connected by a hinge. In addition, the impressive ensemble of the warrior's armor could boast large shoulder pads, triangular armpit shields, a deep neck shield consisting of a high bronze collar, and even greaves lined with linen cloth. Plus, once all these parts were fitted, the full armor amounted to a sturdy, fully enclosed plate armor, which may have been impressive in size, though certainly cumbersome.
Do what?
I said welcome in indoctrination.
Ooh. Did they change their avatar?
No. It's been that way for a while. That's not unindoctrination. It's indoctrination.
Oh, right. Some Romulus shit over here. I like that thing. Might have to go steal some of that. That's cool.
For some to use, and more suitable for chariot riding than for sword fighting. But unlike the Mycenaean warriors, the Aztecs valued freedom of movement and the beauty of the armor, so they preferred to use wild cat skins instead of metal. An elite class of Aztec warriors used this particular armor, the Jaguar warriors. The main task of such warriors was to capture living opponents for further sacrifice, so such armor served its purpose perfectly, to intimidate the enemy and protect the warrior from the stone weapons used by other Central American tribes. It can be speculated that these elite warriors also wore a type of quilted cotton armor under their animal skins, while members of higher ranks tended to flaunt their additional clothing in the form of colored feathers. They also wore a distinctive helmets made of wood, animal hide, and feathers that resembled a jaguar's head.
So they went and got feathers to imitate the jaguar. Am I missing something on that one?
The helmet had ear flaps and sometimes additional accessories like tassels or akoma feathers. As weapons, the Jaguar warriors used a wooden sword with sharp obsidian blades cut into the side. But unfortunately, this armor proved weak to the...
All right, check it out. So, not counting conquistadors with full-on iron armor that are rolling around with steel, right, and using muskets and stuff. Had you brought one of those guys, a medieval peasant, like just random Joe number 33, can you imagine when you whack somebody with that damn wiffle ball bat he's got, that rugby mallet, and those pieces of rock break off and stay in the wound? Good Lord.
Conquistadors who used firearms and metal swords. And Spain defeated the Aztecs. And I'm sure most of you knew about the Aztecs before this video. But what about the Tlingit people? They're Alaskan natives. And just like the Aztecs, they didn't have smelter ore on hand. But they didn't have jaguars, the skins of which could be used as armor. What they had was plenty of wood. And they decided it would be a great material for armor. The Tlingits were formidable warriors, wearing large wooden helmets decorated with clan crests, their fierce faces, or the muzzle of a fearsome animal. They were a formidable spectacle to their enemies. Their armor consisted of heavy wooden collars and wooden slates or rods to cover.
Is homie a pterodactyl? What is that supposed to be? Vaguely resembles a hummingbird, prairie chicken. I don't know, man. Are there any violent birds in the Pacific Northwest that I'm unaware of? Any man-eating, man-hunting terror birds up there that I'm not? I know there's the thunderbird, but I don't feel like that's a thunderbird representation. It looks like a giant chicken to me, man.
For their bodies. They were armed with daggers, spears, and fighting clubs. Tlingit armor consisted of a helmet, a wooden collar protecting the head and neck, and a sleeveless coat of thick leather reaching the hips or...
That looks vaguely samurai-ish. That whole... I'll look at that from that perspective. It does... I can kind of see Foghorn, like, Big Bird. It's okay. It's okay, Big Bird. Peck, peck, loss. Turkeys will actually attack and defend their space. Killer turkeys from outer space. We got a new movie on the way. right after Meth Gator's done.
Cover their bodies. They were armed with daggers, spears, and fighting clubs. Tlingit armor consisted of a helmet, a wooden collar protecting...
Now, am I the only one that thinks that vaguely looks like a samurai getup? Because, I mean, yes, he was a cartoon, Mr. Sperry. You are correct. But he was a funny cartoon. Oh, gosh. Anyway.
Were just additional coverings from knee to slits. The warrior looked up through slits cut into the space between the wooden helmet. This nation excelled in wood carving and made helmets for warriors.
That shit was serious.
But the Tlingit people did not develop in complete isolation like the Aztecs and Mayans, and they often traded with the Russians, who often paid for the skins with Chinese coins. Why Chinese? Because they sold the skins in China at an inflated price. What would you, as a warlike tribe, do with the coins if you had...
What?
A samurai pressure cooker? What outer territory set?
Oh, yeah. Actually, one of the really interesting points about the Pacific Northwest is they seem to be occupied not by a pre-indigenous population of people, not a pre-Columbian population of people, but possibly a secondary migration that took place around the same time that Colombia was coming over here, a group of Kamchatkans from Russia.
Say it again.
I said it, Kamchatkans. That's correct. I've practiced this one. Listen, there is a peninsula just on the other side of the Bering Strait. It's the very first major landmass you come across once you get across the Bering Straits. And on that peninsula, there's a group of natives that are virtually identical in every way. They're animistic legends. The entire Pacific northwest corridor over there is eat up with not specifically Native American myths and legends. They have more, right? On the East Coast, we've got maybe 24 little myths and legends that are very similar to the ones that are all everywhere else. But when, see, I got proof I pronounced it right. I practiced that one.
Right?
Anyway, genetically speaking, they are interspersed with the local indigenous population. But for the most part, they seem to be largely Russian. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
But no money in your economy. That's right, make armor out of it. The Tlingits believed that these coins would protect them from knife attacks and firearms used by other Native American tribes and the Russians. Some Tlingit armor was completely covered with Qing Dynasty coins.
As another observation, the upper Northwest wasn't the only part that made bark and wooden and bone armor as far as Native Americans. Your Algonquins utilized birch bark armor, and they utilized it quite succinctly and like in everything. When they would gear up for war, they went out with the intention of coming back alive. So they looked kind of like robots walking around out there with their big, bulky, wooden, slatted armor.
Thank you, Russell, because I was lost.
Oh, wow. Oh, I wish I didn't know that. I lived my whole life. I was today years old when I found out that a samurai pressure cooker is a Japanese man farting in your mouth. I was today years old. Oh,
Young
how do, I,
grandmother.
how do I have to know these things?
While others had them stitched together as chevrons. One Russian account of the battle with the Tlingits in 1792 states that bullets were useless against Tlingit armor. However, this would more likely be due to the inaccuracy of the Russian smoothbore muskets than to the armor of the Alaskan tribes.
However, it is also the same group of Alaskans would also use drilled rocks. They would tie rocks into their arraignments for battle. So if a bullet hit a rock, it might not necessarily penetrate, but man, it'd probably hurt like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, ow. Like, I don't know what they're hitting us with, but it's fucking serious.
In addition to their armor, the Tlingit also used Chinese coins on masks and ceremonial garments, such as the Gitskan dancing cloak, as these coins were used as a symbol of wealth representing a powerful distant country. But by the time the Tlingit people had just begun to use coins armor, Europe had already mastered the use of metal and was producing armor that covered absolutely everything on a knight's body. From head to toe, the warrior was fully clad in metal, hardened and almost impenetrable.
Do you know where the term bulletproof comes from?
No.
So back in the days when armor was the most critical piece of component for a soldier to have, they would often be proofed in some way or another. That would be, they would take an English U-bow from back in the day and fire it at relatively close range, and it would bounce off the arrow and leave a dent, and that dent was the proof that it was arrow proof, right? They'd do the same thing with small bore muskets and whatnot later on, and you would get a piece of armor that had a good solid slug dent in it, and that was the proof that it was bulletproof, right? So the term bulletproof glass has never been proofed. If you do, it's broken and it may no longer be proof anymore. So I always figured that was kind of a misnomer. There's something wrong with me.
Armor. And this armor was called white armor. It appeared in the 14th century and represented the pinnacle of medieval armor evolution. Full battle armor consisted of several interlocking metal plates that covered the entire body, including...
Hey, Smoking, have you been talking to ATL? He is absolutely adamant that the Sentinelese Island over there is an annex of New Jersey. He's convinced. It's just in the wrong part of the ocean. It's not his fault. He's pretty sure that me, you, him, and some small arms can go take that entire island in an afternoon. We wouldn't even need sills or nothing. I mean, those guys are still in the Stone Age. He did a whole plan over here one
Yes.
night. It was beautiful. The sad part is he's right.
The head, torso, arms, and legs. The plates were usually made of steel and were designed to distribute the force of blows evenly over the armor, protecting the wearer from blunt blows and edged weapons. This armor was expensive and time-consuming to produce and required skilled craftsmen to make and fit the various components to the wearer's body. Despite its weight and bulkiness, full-plate armor was very effective in combat because each joint of the armor was attached to hinges that could be bent with ease. And many researchers say that this armor was incredibly comfortable for its weight. Even the feet could bend and flex. Just look at this marvel. Not every modern shoe can boast such comforts. And when the pinnacle was reached, it was time for the warrior's adornment. And so, in the 16th century, black and white's armor appeared. This armor used the contrast between heavily polished white and unpolished black areas for a decorative effect in the form of large bold patterns on the armor. And this armor was truly beautiful. It was used mainly by kings and the high nobility, like the armor of King Henry VIII of England or King Henry II of France, for example. The Henrys obviously liked beautiful armor. Also, a lot of this armor is now in Italian museums, and these are very fine examples of the pinnacle of blacksmithing evolution. But, unfortunately, strategy and tactics of warfare were not standing still, and by the 18th century, full plate armor had almost completely disappeared from military affairs. If you wonder why a simple woolen military uniform replaced this perfect armor, let us know in the comments. We will make a video about it. If you like the video, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of interesting things to show here. For example, here is a video about the most incredible ancient weapons. If you want to financially support our channel, here is a link to Patreon in the description. Thanks for watching.
Pinnacle pineapple pancake.
What is going on in chat? Are you having strokes?
You're going to need an army to go against
All right.
me.
Hold up.
You're gonna need an army to go against me.
Yeah, no, this guy's the real deal, bro. Check this one out. This is from a channel called Criminal Insight, and in this case, the cops were interviewing a guy, right? The cops are interviewing a guy, and they have no idea that this dude is possibly
Puppy
responsible
Carrie.
for murder, right? Absolutely no idea that this dude may have done it. They're just bringing him in because they saw him on like a security camera or something, and
So unlike the other video where they
had the wrong guy,
right?
This is the opposite,
They
where
don't think that he's the guy.
they had
that he is
no idea that he's involved at all. That he was just in the same gas station at some point in time, or something like that. That he lives down the road from her or something.
Okay.
And something he says during this interview triggers them to be like, "Whoa, wait a second, you did it. You're under arrest. You did it." To prove you did it. And I've watched it twice, and I've seen the change happen, and I want to know if you notice when it happens.
Okay.
It's not a terribly long video. It's like 15 minutes, I think. Yeah, about 15 minutes. Most of them are. As far as I can tell, there's a benefit for over 8 minutes and benefit for just under 15 minutes from the algorithm. For those of you who care,
Yes.
I've noticed that. Just like you get a benefit for uploading 2 shorts a day, but there's no benefit to you for uploading 3. And if you're going to upload 2 shorts a day, you should do it 12 hours off of each other so that they each have the full 12 hours in the feed for them to have their effect. You can straight game the numbers a little bit depending on what time you release your shorts. Anyway.
Obviously, you do care because you asked, punk. Just saying.
No, he doesn't care about shorts.
No.
He cares
What
about your
my hair.
He really cares about your hair. He's one of those sniffers in chief I was talking about in that song. He's real creepy. You've met him, right?
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that'll sit in the corner with a jewel and just glow. occasionally. He's like his own rave in his own head. I'm gonna move on before I get rude.
I fell off my roof and I broke some ribs. You know, every time I talked to him, I said, I want my truck. Then he started threatening me.
This is Roy Frazier, a man accused of fatally shooting 2 roommates in the head and burying their bodies on his property. In April 2009, 24-year-old Kenneth Uretz Jr. and 31-year-old Damian Marks vanished without any apparent reason, leaving their loved ones in constant intrigue and worry. A week of relentless investigation yielded no answers, prompting Kenneth's father to visit the home of Roy Frederick Frazier, Kenneth's roommate, friend, and business partner.
Hey, John, welcome to the show, bud.
Any knowledge of her whereabouts.
Just so you know, this has all gone completely off the rails. And while I'm trying to go over these videos, we're just having no luck with it. Chat has having strokes. They seem to be having unrelated conversations with one another. And with my co-host currently. I've lost all control of this, and I'm just soldiering on like a good Sasquatch. I'm gonna smile. I'm gonna look at the camera. Anything else?
John.
Right. Okay, as long as you're good with it, we'll continue.
Claiming ignorance about their disappearance. Despite his protestations, the police's thorough search led them to Frazier's property, where they made a chilling discovery. Kenneth and Mark's lifeless bodies were found, bearing the marks of gunshot wounds and stabs on the very grounds where Frazier and Kenneth had been growing marijuana together. This
dun, dun, dun.
marks the beginning of the Roy Frazier case. Prior to being highlighted as a possible suspect, Frazier took the initiative to approach the police, volunteering to testify about his relationship with Kenneth.
And with me is Mr. Roy Frazier. It's Fraser.
Yep.
Is that the right spelling?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have a middle name, Mr. Frazier?
Frederick.
The interrogation commenced with
something you need to keep in mind, man. I fancy myself as a bit of a pilot in video games, right? If it's got wings, I can fly. Probably land it. Probably. But the thing about a pilot is there's no such thing as a crash. Extirpate that from your vocabulary, because you will no longer crash an airplane, a helicopter, or anything. The term is uncontrolled descent. We have controlled failures.
Oh my.
Well, I mean, like, a pilot would never admit to being out of control, not even for a second. So that language is completely eliminated from a pilot's vocabulary. You have an unmetered reduction in altitude. I could do this all night. We don't crash. It's not something we do.
It's landing in style.
An unplanned landing. Oh, baby. That's good shit. Let's see what he does to
formal protocol,
stupid,
including the announcement that the interview was being
all agree. Can we all agree to start with that he's talking to the cops, and that's where he went wrong?
Yes.
Okay. He doesn't have a lawyer with him while discussing this, and that is his one and most potent error.
Well, he went to the cops. They didn't even approach him.
Okay. He was evil bastard.
And other standard norms, such as the formal introduction of each other.
So can you tell me how you ended up phoning him?
His dad, or Ken's dad, came and talked to me Friday night and said, have you seen Kenny? And I said, no. You know, and said, is his stuff still here? And I said, yeah, his bed's
I'm just going to leave that up there. Somebody needs it.
And he says, well, they're missing. You know. Blah, blah,
Notice
blah.
when he told the first lie, though, his body changed. His body language changed.
Been missing for like a week.
Who's the
Pardon me?
When you say they,
Kenny and his friend.
Kenny and his friend, did
Yeah.
you mention his friend's name?
Dario.
No, he didn't crash the F-104. He just left without planning. It was it was an unregistered ejection. He didn't mean to do it. I swear to God, there's no such thing as a crash. It doesn't exist. You can go through all the manuals everywhere in all of the everything. You will never find the word crash in anything written by a pilot.
True.
Probably not even when talking about computers, but I don't know. You'd have to ask the Air
Should have
Force.
smoked the weed before going to the station.
Damien.
Damien? Okay.
Frazier candidly admits why he made the call to the police, and the reasons are crystal clear. He knew he was bound to end up on the suspect list because 1, he had a history intertwined with Kenneth. 2, Kenneth's belongings and essentials still resided at his place.
Okay. So what was the relationship between you and Ken?
Just friends.
Friends.
Yeah.
So you've known him for what?
A couple years. A girl that I knew from Calgary that I was going out with for a bit. When she come to town, she introduced me to.
Okay.
And that was it. And and then I haven't seen her in like a year and a half.
Okay.
And stuff. So, but Ken and I, like, he come out to my place and I showed him where I live, and he come out a couple of times and he brought some beer and I thought he was a good kid.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're smoking, then you're going up.
Their relationship extended beyond mere
Right.
friendship.
You come in
Kenneth
smelling
and
like weed,
Frazier
you're
were
done.
business partners involved in the cultivation of marijuana at Frazier's rental property in Knuff Lake. This fact presents one of the plausible theories behind the brutal killings of Kenneth and Marks, a motive that remains under investigation.
And where did you see him?
When did I see? Where?
Yeah.
Oh, he come to my house.
Oh, he came over to your place.
Which is why he didn't break the speed record. That mouse was the entire problem with the whole mission the whole time. Otherwise, he'd be right. You're getting it. You're figuring it out. That's how pilots think. That's exactly how pilots think. The engineers will also blame the mouse or a bug.
He shot him for early harvest.
Goddamn, dude, that's rough. Remind me never to start a farm with you, bro. Good God.
Okay.
There you go. Why you
His
sound
news
like
when
me?
I see him.
Unlike other unwise suspects, Frazier is making the same mistake by refraining from seeking legal counsel and attempting to construct.
Hold on. I absolutely believe truth on this one. I
Yes.
absolutely believe him. Who go in smelling like weed, then ask them why they smell like weed. Like knowing it's him loud as fuck. The whole time he's like, I smell weed too. You smell weed? It smells just like weed, dear. Why do you smell like weed, dear?
Oh, that would be so.
I
fun
did, man. This
to
shit's
do.
crazy. Why are you walking around with these 2 joints? There's 1 joint left.
You're gonna have to do that on the next Cop Watch. Truth, be like, you smell weed?
Loud as fuck, dude.
Yes, yes, that.
Go
weed.
get some of those CBD bags.
Yes.
Just straight have them do all the tests. To just be an asshole about it. That's a whole different kind of audit, ain't it?
Hey man, I keep telling myself like I'm gonna do like either baby powder. I mean, not baby powder, like baking soda. In a little clear bat. You know what I mean? Like.
But don't do that. Don't do that. Don't be dumb.
Why?
That's dumb.
No, it's not.
You stop for a moment. You think this shit through for a minute.
I have.
And they find that shit on you and you're not trying to twat it up real hard. They are definitely going to assume you on some shit. And then they're going to run you through the whole process.
That's
The
okay.
whole thing.
Because guess what? In the end, I am sober as fuck. I did nothing wrong, and they look dumb.
I think maybe it might be wrong to carry around drug substitutes in hopes of eliciting a response from police. I suspect that might be misuse of something somewhere.
To borrow some baking soda. It was the only bag I had.
That just happened to look like a perfect little. Move on.
This approach is only compounding his difficulties and making his situation more precarious.
I know, John.
Lies, including mentioning false dates and manipulating timelines, are proving ineffective in extricating him from the situation.
I know.
Instead, they are further entangling him in a web of trouble.
He's using
What's
my
up,
truck.
Tails? Good to see you.
And at first, I really, I let him use my truck because, I fell off my roof and I broke some ribs. March 5th or 6th, right? And I told him that. I want the truck and and everything else. And spring is coming up, and I said, my insurance.
Why would it be an arrest? Why would it be an arrest though? Guaranteed arrest.
All right. But here it comes down to the reasonable part. The
reasonable gives him the
okay.
legality of doing the whole.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let's say you're riding around and you've got your little fake drugs in your little open container, what the fuck ever it is you're doing, right?
Yes.
It's there. It's in plain sight.
Okay.
They do find it.
Okay.
They then have reason to search your car and they find the 2 roaches in the floorboard that got stomped
There
down.
ain't no, it wouldn't be. I wouldn't know.
Okay. All right. You gonna take it and go have it detailed before you do this?
Yes.
Smart girl.
I don't smoke roaches in my car, so I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, weed in my car.
I sold a truck to a kid that I owned through my entire junkie days. And I went up to that thing with an absolute fine tooth comb looking for everything that could ever have possibly ever been put into it ever. Every hiding spot I ever came up with, all of them. But when I sold it to him, I told him I was a junkie when I was driving this truck. Your dad was also in that truck. Mom was in that truck. You know what might be in that truck.
Right.
I'll sell it to you. But don't you ever come back to me telling me that you found something in my truck. I don't want to know. At all. Don't bring it back. Don't tell me it happened. I don't want to know. But definitely you get all your buddies to crawl all over it and search it. They might get lucky, but good luck.
Probable cause arrest. How, John?
Okay, so you have a baggie of powder on your console.
Okay, but they have to prove that it's illegal substance right before they can arrest me.
No.
How
they
not?
use some absurd number of those roadside tests are faulty anyway, and they give false positives all the time. If they catch a false positive or just lie and say they did, they take you to jail. You get arrested. You catch the charge. You go in. You prove it's not cocaine, which they don't keep that shit around. They just get rid of it, probably selling it to some asshole down on 3rd Street. and maybe they get in trouble with their dealers about having a shitty supply because you added some baking soda into the fucking mix, and that's all that happens. Because it's a reasonable arrest, because it would be reasonable to assume that baggie of white powder is probably an illicit substance. You're probably on that substance, and you probably know something about that substance. So we search your car, we take you downtown, you get a nice little ride, you spend the night in the clink. When you get out the next morning, that shit's already back on the streets in some other batch of cookies. You have no evidence when you get to court. I'm just trying to listen. What is your lawyer's name? What is your lawyer's name?
Truth be told, what is our lawyer's name?
That doesn't count. So until you can tell me your lawyer's name, can we put this one to bed?
Okay. All right. Okay.
At least until little sassy Justice is up to like 2.5, 3 foot tall.
Okay. Well, what about what Truth be told said? Putting the empty Coke can in a bag and walking in saying, "I got a bag of Coke."
All right, let me think.
I'm not gonna do it.
There's a problem there.
But I'm not gonna do it.
Do you remember the magician who used to walk around with open containers and get shut down by cops and have it all disappear in front of them?
No, I don't.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to dig that up for y'all. That is absolute solid gold. Homie would go downtown back in New York during like the 80s and 90s when the whole stop and frisk thing was big freaking news and everything. And he went and made a list. This is like predating the whole auditing concept. Just for being a dumbass and for a bag of coke. That's right. And he would go out in front of like like Times Square cops and stuff with a
Public pretender. Okay, moving
and
on.
a brown bag shaped like some Thunderbird wine, and he would wander around until somebody tried to shake him down for drinking in public or whatever, and then he would disappear all of the evidence. That might be worthwhile to do if you can learn a little sleight of hand and actually get away with it. But you're going to jail. Think about that shit. Their ego. You're going to jail. You're not beating that
okay,
ride.
let's say I take that ride, okay? I mean, but like, okay, no, let's move on.
You have to show up to the court. They'll
but
throw.
Eventually, okay, even if I did all that, eventually, it would. I mean,
how?
Never mind.
Because, like I said, they're just going to take it out of the drug supply room closet.
They would put real shit in it, right?
Right. Well, I mean, it's either going to test positive or not.
Yeah.
And either way, you get no control over how that comes out. Come on, just until you know the name of your lawyer or that kid is 3.5 foot tall. I will not support any action of this nature. No.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Every time I talked to him, I said, I want my truck. Like in the last few months, he'd come out like once a month or something. And I tried phoning him on his cell phone, and he's not answering his cell phone number. But, come the new year, every time I seen him or talked to him, I said, I want my truck. I want my truck. Mm-hmm. And, and then the last time I talked to him, I said, I'm going to call the RCMP, and then he started threatening me.
And it was by, you received a phone call from,
yeah.
You called him on his cell?
No, he called me.
He called you?
Yeah. And I said, if you don't come with my truck, I'm going to call the RCMP. And then he started threatening me.
What did he say?
He says, the RCMP won't do you any good. You're going to need an army to go against me. That's what he said.
The truck Frazier mentions is another one of
that's what I was thinking, smoking auditor. That's what I would have done.
No longer alive.
Exactly.
What the hell are you babbling about?
Right there. Right there. In case they did do the switcheroo and try to pin some bullshit on me. Just saying.
Are you going to do a continuous shot from the moment you fill that baggie up till you get in the car and ride around for 3 hours until you get pulled over by some random dirty ass cop that wants to look at your titties?
I would. I mean, why not?
Okay. Because it's dumb as fuck. I mean, it's really dense, dude. You could just not then have a better day. Think about all the stress you wouldn't be having. I agree. They're all dirty. They're all dirty. Every single one of them. You don't have to prove it. Let them prove it.
Smoking auditor are my homies right now.
But let them prove it. You don't. You don't have to.
Sorry. Okay.
My Lord, what is wrong with you people? Stop encouraging her. No, I'm not trying. No,
I didn't make the false police report, so how that wouldn't be against me. And I didn't. Whatever you said on the false panic, that's their reaction to what they think they found. So again, not on me.
But it would come down to what you could prove, and like you said, you'd have to do a seamless, unbroken stream. You'd have to have no technical issues. And the second it glitches off, everybody's going to say, "Oh, it was a different bag."
That's a good looking forward. Indoctrination's like moving on.
That's a good looking forward. All right.
Frustration becomes evident through his statement. According to him, Kenneth borrowed his truck for a brief period. But instead of returning it, he took possession and refused to give it back. This circumstance raises the possibility that Frazier may have killed him over this dispute. However, this motive does not explain why Marks met a tragic end as well. According to statements, Marks was killed because he had witnessed what happened between Frazier and Kenneth. Unlike Kenneth and Frazier, Marks had no history of involvement in drugs or other illegal activities. He simply found himself at the wrong place at the wrong time.
He told me that he became an IS member.
Ken told you that?
Yeah, you know, and
What's the IS number?
I said I didn't think that you wanted anything to do with gangs. You know,
Oh, okay. Obviously a gang. Bless you.
What?
Bless you.
Okay. What were we doing?
Just hit play.
Good idea. Let's do that.
and he said he'd been trying to get in there for 2 or 3 years. You know,
Frazier seems to be attempting to divert attention from himself by suggesting the possibility that the Independent Soldiers, IS gang, might be responsible for the disappearance or killings of Kenneth and Marks. He subtly introduces the idea that Kenneth may have become associated with the IS gang, which is not entirely unfounded. The Independent Soldiers, also known as the IS gang, is a notorious organized crime group operating in British Columbia, Canada, with involvements in organized crime activities nationwide and even within Canadian prisons. By mentioning this, Frazier seems to be subtly implying that Kenneth's association with the IS gang might have led to the unfortunate events. However, it remains to be seen whether this claim holds any validity, or if Frazier is using it as a diversion tactic to shift the focus away from himself.
So what did Ken do for a living?
I don't know what he did.
You don't get any employment?
He didn't have a job or anything.
Frazier weaves yet another deceptive tale by claiming ignorance about Kenneth's employment or the nature of his livelihood, despite both of them being involved in marijuana operations together. These fabrications are only adding to the complexity of his situation, as providing self-serving alibis and avoiding legal counsel rarely led to favorable outcomes. After extracting what he believes to be possible information in under 30 minutes, the detective changes his approach and decides to assert some pressure on Frazier.
We're trying to find out what happened to him.
Yeah.
So we need to find out all the details. We really don't care about any criminal activity that you may have been involved in. So I just want to let you relax about that.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I'd like to get the true story.
Yeah.
We're not blind. We're not blind to anything.
Right.
And I just don't want to. You said, I'd like you to be as frank as you can be to show me what was the relationship between you and Ken. I think there's a little bit more to the story now. So we need to know all those little details. If something did happen to Ken or Damien, we'd like to know. And so any little details that you may have or anything that you're not telling me, like nobody's an angel. Right?
I don't know what happened to these.
First, he reassures Frazier that he can relax, but simultaneously, the detective hints that there is more to the story that Frazier is holding back. By doing so,
Body language
he
thing.
plants the idea in Frazier's mind.
All right. So what he's doing right there with his arms on his knees and his fingers poked together like this is referred to as gating. And it is often done when an individual is thinking very hard thoughts to try to not reveal something. It takes more thought process to not say something you're thinking than it does to actually say it. But yes, the fact that he's here at all is a huge red flag.
That despite his voluntary appearance and cooperation, getting out of this matter without further scrutiny won't be as straightforward as he may have hoped.
So let me ask you that, was there more than what you just told me about the relationship with the Ken?
What he did, after he told me he became an independent soldier, I just don't like those gang guys.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I've been able to do it the whole time, bro. I just don't. Lazy and good for nothing. And I'm not even sure you can count me as a content creator. I mean, what do? I don't know. That bullshit I put out the other day was content. Anybody who knows it was content. Definitely content. That's all I can say that might be considered as good about it.
When the detective inquires if Fraser has divulged all the details about his relationship with Kenneth, Fraser veers off track once more, bringing up the gang once again to divert from the actual question. However, the detective isn't easily swayed and persists, mentioning Fraser's involvement in the dope business.
At one point, did you guys get into criminal activities, whether or not it is to grow dope?
Yeah.
Do you guys growing dope together?
No.
No?
No. He wanted to grow dope.
At your place?
No, at another place.
Another place, okay.
Yeah, another place. I've never been to the place and that, but...
were they taking care of a grow somewhere close to your place? Was it the reason why they were living so far out of the city?
No, they had a place that it was or 40 minutes from my place that they wanted to set up, but they never did set it up.
When you say they again?
Potato.
Damien and Ken.
Well, originally it was supposed to be Damien and Ken, but you know, it never got set up. So
did you do any work for Ken and
no, I didn't.
In response, Fraser resorts to another lie, shifting the blame onto Kenneth by claiming that it was Kenny's idea to grow the dope. But the truth is that both Fraser and Kenneth.
But it was me. It was my idea to grow the dope. I'm almost certain.
Property last year, and Fraser was the one operating the entire operation himself.
The transfer form,
okay,
for ownership. Just want to see if you can tell me whether or not the signature or handwriting is yours.
As the investigation progresses, the detective delves into the topic of Fraser's truck and questions why a lent vehicle cannot be treated as stolen. Despite the line of questioning, Fraser remains composed, keeping his demeanor simple and often flashing a calm smile during the interrogation. He'll secure the belief that his property has not been searched yet, and this false sense of security leads him to think that he won't be considered a serious suspect. Little does he know that the search of his property will be the final nail in the coffin. His voluntary cooperation has already left loose ends.
Last time you spoke to him was on the phone, beginning of March, you said, roughly?
Yep.
Of this year.
Yep.
Oh, I couldn't know myself. I'm sorry.
I get accused of hypnotizing people with my backgrounds, with my voice, with my beard.
You turned me into a potato. Look, I mean. Oh, man. Oh. Sorry.
But I don't think me spinning around would be enough to hypnotize anybody, bro. I don't think beard could do it either. Maybe my voice if I came in talking all sultry like. Gosh.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say, boy, we can talk all sexy like all night long. The problem with that is I have no idea what I'm going to say, and so it's just an accent with random words generated from my subconscious. It's sort of like Tourette's, only with less ranting.
Tell me again the conversation that you had with Ken on the phone. How did it go?
I don't know, like the beginning of the conversation, but like I can't remember. But at the end, you know, like I kept telling him, like I want my truck back.
That's a new series I'm going to bring out, the Yeet Files. It's just going to look like the X Files, but it's going to have a big Y instead of an X and a little bitty tiny EET next to it. Oh, he's famous. Hey, look, it's Make Stupid People Famous. He's got merch. A dude made a shirt. I seen it. I saw that. That was a pretty cool shirt too. I mean, Make Stupid People Famous is a pretty huge series of words to try to put on merchandise. I mean, it's going to play hell in the magazines. It's going to be really hard to sell. But subconscious speaks backwards as you're speaking normally. Dude, hit it again. You've just about got an idea.
I said, Kenny, I'm going to report you to the RCMP. And then he just blew up, on the phone. And everything else, and tell me I'd need an army to go up against him and just everything, right? And he's screaming at me on the phone, and I was just holding the phone.
The detective resumes the conversation by employing a common technique, asking Frazier to recall the last call he had with Kenny, hoping to uncover any inconsistencies in Frazier's recollection. However, to the detective's surprise, Frazier confidently recalls the event without any signs of deception, leading him to believe that he has successfully removed himself from suspicion. Unfortunately for Frazier, the interrogation doesn't end there. The subsequent search of his property yields damning evidence. Kenny's blood is discovered on the premises, and burned evidence is found in a fire pit. Furthermore, the murder weapon is also unearthed, providing substantial proof against him. Additionally, forensic details, like determining whether the murderer was left-handed or right-handed, further incriminate.
That's actually the show that never happened, dude. Like, it was going to happen, and then there was a storm, and then it was going to happen, and the power went out, and it never actually happened. Like, he's been on Backstage and, like, a bunch, and After Dark, but I've never hosted Make Stupid People Famous. I'd like to.
Nate Frazier. Frazier maintains his innocence throughout the trial, claiming he did not kill Kenny or Marks. However, the jury swiftly reaches a decision based on the overwhelming evidence at hand. The bodies were found on his land, the murder weapon was discovered there, and attempts to destroy evidence were evident. Ultimately, Frazier is found guilty of first-degree murder for the death of Damian Marks,
right?
And guilty of second-degree murder for the death of Kenneth Uretsky. He received a life sentence with parole ineligibility for 10 years on one count.
You want to just rub him on his head and say, "That's a good job, little buddy." Now you get on out there and you vote. Show him again.
Like, dude, that would be cool.
Dude, I swear to God, bro. I swear to God, you come to a Sasquatch Shills with you. If you want anything done to that freaking whatever he does, I'll do it. I'll do the absolute best I can. It'll be absolutely. You might not like it. It'll be fantastic. I guarantee you, it'll be funny. Oh, Skipper. What was that? Huh?
And 25 years on the other. The evidence leaves no room for doubt, and Frazier's confident demeanor during the interrogation proves to be a fleeting illusion in the face of undeniable facts.
It's hot. You're hot. I'm hot.
So let me back up.
Too hot for titties. Too hot. If I could hang them up, I would.
Oh, I heard the funniest shit the other day. It almost killed me. I was watching this these shorts or something, and one chick, she's like kind of a big chick. She's like, it's all text. She's like, I ain't never sleeping in a tank top again. I woke up this morning and my left hip was in there making coffee. And if you've ever walked in on a well-endowed woman sleeping in a tank top, you understand what she meant. Like you got a bald-headed brother in a freaking headlock.
Oh my God, that's funny.
So that's what I woke up to this morning for my giggling fit immediately. So apparently the suggestion of a pot AC, most people believe that it would work. I have a second question for chat. One in chat, if you think this chick can do it.
Make what? A clay AC?
A clay AC. Yes, ma'am. Does she grasp the concept enough to make a viable AC of clay? Because the premise now, the idea that evaporating water cools is old as dirt. And
She
there
can
are,
do it.
you think she can do it?
She can do it.
All right. I'm going to mute it. Well, actually, I'm going to let her do her little intro shit. And then I'm going to mute it. And we're going to discuss what's right and what's wrong here.
Every day it feels like we're breaking heat records. Global warming, scary shit. Here's the deal, though. I've been spending the last few sleepless nights Googling how to cool my house without it. And then I found this. This ancient AC system will cool your house without electricity. And I was like, I can make that.
Hold on. You saw what she showed, right?
Right.
System will cool your house without electricity.
All right. You see this.
I see it.
Do you see how this functions?
No.
Okay. We'll discuss that in a minute. But from this simple premise, she does this whole video and everything that she did in it, right? So she's going to go about recreating this effect.
Okay, she
in
failed.
the worst possible way.
Yeah, I got it now.
Electricity. And I was like, I can make that.
All right. So from here, it's pretty much exactly what you would expect. She beats the clay into submission until she can get it into cylinders to put in the extruder to make the vase shape, to start the process of making the. And then I don't know exactly what happens at this point. My question is, and I have a bunch. I'm assuming this is the first time she's made use of this style of extruder, because she has a whole bunch of troubles getting the clay off of it, and you're supposed to use floss.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Usually you have two people around when you do it, but even if you don't, you can take a piece of floss, throw it around, catch it on the other side, hold it with one hand, and pull it free. You just twist when you do it, and you'll get a clean cut. But she has endless problems with this concept of cutting the clay. She busts out a freaking scalpel. So she's doing precision work over here, right? She's using a scalpel. I got nothing against this woman. I don't. And I really hope she figures out a way to cool her house. My point is that what you just saw was a brick that is made of two pieces, right? And the two pieces. You see it now, don't you? Yes. All right. So that brick is like 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches thick, however thick they can do it. And it stacks into the wall, and a piece of drip comes into it from some form of plumbing, rain, whatever. It gets hooked up to like the cistern on the roof or some shit. And so during the day, that one brick has a passageway through it, and you would line up 2 or 3 of them in a row if you needed to try to cool the interior space. It's like having a window without actually having a window, right? Mm-hmm. But when the wind blows and it comes through that window, it's the temperature of the water evaporating. It's like an ancient swamp cooler. The idea being that the clay is porous and it absorbs the water. The water evaporates, cooling the water, which also cools the air as it blows across the clay in a cycle, right? The downside is anywhere you put these things, you're going to end up having a whole bunch of fungus growing around, especially in Georgia. We're going to be growing some nice mushrooms in that room. Some big old green swaths of mold across one wall. Because you're basically taking the effect that ruined rooms that you keep plants in, mm-hmm. and she just built a supercharger for it.
Make the thing small so I can see what's behind me.
Or
you know what I mean?
I know the words what be coming out your mouth hole.
Thank you.
But now you saw what she showed at the beginning, right?
Right.
You saw that madness. A million memes as they do a live show. I recommend taking a day and checking them out. I've been over to Whiskey Uncensored and Whiskey Written, which I think are associated channels. I don't know how they're associated, but they seem to be aware of each other and might be the same people. I'm not sure. I think Whiskey Uncensored showed up over here a couple of times. Dun 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 dun. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Lord. That's glorious work. Oh, why do you hate me so much? Things are going great all the way up till I heard that poor sad sound. Why? I'm not. Why you treating me like you treat Carrie? That's not right. I'm a nice guy. I'm not a troll at all. I mean, she's just gonna laugh at my pain. Y'all see this, right? Right on my Tigger. All right. So she has got this whole plan worked out. Y'all see what she's trying to accomplish, right? So we're going to skip to the end result of what she's actually going to use, right? So she has these relatively aesthetically pleasing vases, I suppose you would call them.
Yeah.
And her big plan is to set them up with a tray to collect the actual fired tray to collect the water, and to set them in the water and fill them up individually, right? It's not. I mean, it's art, so more power to her, right?
What the fuck?
I'm just saying, man, it ain't got to look like nothing in particular. It's art. It's fine. It's a lovely use of a channel. Let me tell you. I approve. And the idea that she combined that with trying to cool off, I approve even more, because she's clearly in a place that she's uncomfortable making content. I said they could be aesthetically pleasing. I think they kind of look like tube worms on the bottom of the ocean, and it instills me with a bit of like primal fear that I can't quite describe or explain. It's just that I'm frightened of big worms. I'm sure Freud would have something to say about that, but the truth escapes me, I think. I do have to say one other thing. She's pretty cute with her little Leia buds back there. Of course, you always got to be careful with a woman with a visible snake tattoo. That's instant red flag territory. I'm just saying. The roses are also red flag territory. If there is a visible rose with thorns on it, you be careful. That bitch will fucking stab you. Anything in a foreign language, to be honest, that's definitely a red flag. It's not your favorite movie, nor Kevin Bacon in the shower. Well, I'll be honest with you, man. I have a lot of respect for Kevin Bacon. Can you imagine how to become famous with that huge, enormous schnoz he had? I mean, everyone hates Kevin Bacon's nose. I can't be the only one. Well, I mean, you know, Carrie, most of us don't like bleeding on our dates. Thing is, that bitch will stab your girlfriend too. So, like, you need to be careful around them. Oh yeah, that's because if some assholes go out and start fires in the forest, and then you scream about climate enough, you'll get like front page news and stuff. I could do some numbers on all that if you wanted to like hammer that shit down, but they would blast me completely off YouTube for it. Like for instance, and this is just a fringe element, how many bison were on the American plains pre-Columbus? Counting all of them, East Coast, West Coast, mountain bison, all of them, everywhere. Do you reckon we win a 1-to-1 conversion on cows? I don't think so. I don't buy that. As I understand it, there were herds of bison that took days to pass around town. So how that's just not the number of cows we have today. If you took all the cows we had, and all of the battery farms, and all of the milk farms, and all of everywhere, and you put them all loose on the American plains, I do not believe you would get a 1-to-1 conversion. And even if you did, a bison weighs twice as much as a cow. That's twice as much poo gas. And then we could have a conversation about passenger pigeons. And exactly how many of them fuckers there were flying around and how much poo gas they run out their butts. I'm just saying, ain't all it's cracked up to be, man. All right. So there's been a few accounts throughout history of different cultures who have achieved the creation of ice through clever construction methods. Most of them are found in highly desert, highly dry, typically mountainous regions, right? Where it does get very, very cold at night. And it is possible through basic solid state technology to reach nearly freezing or sub-freezing temperatures. With the introduction of local water, you get the creation of ice. Nearchus, one of the of Alexander the Great's admirals, wrote about an encampment that he found that were guarding a local and I can't remember the word they used, but it was an ice house is what he had discovered, and it was in the middle of the freaking like Sinai Peninsula over there, a few thousand miles away from the nearest source of ice. And right, something like 200 million. Well, back in the day, Google used to say there were 174 million bison on the plains before Columbus landed, and there are 97 million cows in the world. And now it says there were just over 100 million bison, according to the Google, the Wikipedia segment of all. Anyway, damn memory fucking with me again. Hey, just cut out on me. All right, so here's what she ended up doing. You see that, right? It's okay, sweetest. You do what you got to do. You got to raise my baby over there. I know. I'm sure. What just happened? No? We're still live. Right? Yes, everything's still working, correct? All right. Nothing else is. That's for sure. That's crazy. All right. Anyway, y'all see what she did right here, right? She basically made great big juicy sponges of clay, a porous firing, not a full vitrification process, but a partial firing, so that they're good and solid, but they're not completely impermeable. Yeah, no, my phone just gave up the ghost on keeping up with the live. It's just decided to quit. I don't understand. Oh, maybe my shit turned off. Hold on. Right? I don't know.
Didn't actually turn out to cool the air more than a degree. But if you're interested in functional pottery projects like this that are a little bit outside of the box, definitely check this video out here.
By all means, go check that chick out. She, if nothing else, she has good ideas. I mean, there's no sense in not trying. There's another guy out there who's doing thermal, I think it's called thermal relief paint, where he's developing a surface that actually wicks heat away, depending on like the temperature differential between inside and outside. If it's like really hot outside, it's cooler. I don't know how exactly it works. All right, so she put it in a room with the shades drawn and the windows closed, and basically put a fan on it, and the room was apparently cooler than she remembers it being. But as far as evidence, not really. But consider what she did. She made about 8 square foot of porous material that would maybe cool a small closet on a warm day. So I don't know if you had those types of things built into a wall the size of, say, Pittsburgh, then you're talking. Like, you're really talking now. But no, there's been a handful of citations by various historians where they found evidence and mentions of small tribes and whatnot in the Bedouin out country having ice and having a word for ice, whereas they have no word for snow. So the likelihood of them having encountered it locally is much higher than them having just come across ice somewhere. And yes, caravans would often bring big blocks of ice to locations like this as a starter to initially cool down the interior room. But the way they did this is they had series of porous blocks that were kept moist. And when the air come in from the bottom, it was heated by the heat of the day and sucked out of the top. But the cold air that came through the moist areas dropped into the lower area of the building. And if you do that long enough, apparently it drives the temperature lower than freezing in some cases, especially if you got a big old block of ice to start the process off with. And it also, if I remember right, derives some moisture from the air in the process, so that the air coming out is actually drier than the air that went in, which I'm not 100% sure how that works, considering that it uses the evaporation and whatnot. I never could figure that part out. The math just doesn't seem to work out there. No, I think I did that wrong. Let's try that again. Skadoosh. Right. So the next tidbit we got over here. Where's my list? There's my list. Who here is familiar with Robert Heinlein? If I'm going to get popped with a copyright claim tonight, it will be this channel. Robert Heinlein was an author in the middle part of the 20th century, and he was renowned for writing heavily libertarian ideas and the idea of extreme political freedom from arbitration and from government entities. He wrote Starship Troopers, and while a lot of people think that's a fascist government, if you go actually look at it real hard, actually, Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad podcast of the Lotus Eaters, did an excellent deposition of that whole script. He goes through it step by step. He did a magnificent job at basically breaking down how it's not actually a fascist government. It is a government run by veterans and only veterans, which means they are extremely pragmatic and support the troops at every turn. A non-citizen, which means a non-veteran, doesn't get to vote in that type of stuff. They vote in local things because they never served the human population. I don't know. It's a really deep thing. And he had a lot of really deep ones. And one of the really, really deep ones is a particular one called Stranger in a Strange Land. All of the funny shit you hear me do, every single time you pop a stitch giggling at some dumb shit that I said or did, all stems back from probably the 10th time I read this book, because the first 9 times it didn't stick. I didn't get it. Now, she is going to be extremely blunt and also accurate in her description of this novel, because it makes 0 sense and is only there as an archetypal structure, right? It's basically a archetype of a savior, archetype of a human, archetype of a woman, archetype of a man, archetype of government overreach. You know what I mean? It's like, it's all symbolic as hell, but she does a pretty good job at breaking this one down.
The year 1961. The man, Robert A. Heinlein, author, dreamweaver, die-hard libertarian. Hot on the heels of the success of Starship Troopers, the granddaddy of military SF, and a personal middle finger to the bleeding hearts of the era who thought that maybe the president should dial back the nukes a little bit, Heinlein wrote a novel titled Stranger in a Strange Land, a book that is allegedly about a human raised on Mars returning to Earth as an outside observer with insights into the strange pretenses of human society and a purer perspective on life. And then in the third act, he founds a sex cult, so kind of a mixed bag, really. Our story begins with the first manned mission to Mars, a 3-year journey.
There, by the way, in Heinlein's writing, sex cults are a regular event. They just happen. You can't control them. They're always wholesome and good, and they never cause any major problems in any of the relationships involved in any of the sex cults he wrote about. They're always positive influences on the entire world in all cases. So just keep that in mind when you're reading them, and you might be able to get through without giggling too much.
Journey carefully arranged so that none of the 8 crew members were likely to go crazy and murder each other. The plan worked a little too well, as when the second mission to Mars lands 25 years later, they find that the entire crew got into a big poly relationship, had a kid, and then died.
Hey,
this
bud.
kid is now a
Welcome
young man
in.
named
Good to see
Valentine
you.
Michael Smith, who has been raised by Martians his whole life. Oh yeah,
Good to see you,
Martians
bud.
are real, and there's air on Mars. That's sci-fi, baby. So Mr. Valentine is brought back to Earth, where the increased gravity and air pressure immediately make him sick, and he's hospitalized so he can acclimate safely. Now, Michael is a bit of an oddball. See, being raised by Martians means he's got almost zero understanding of human behavior, but it's also given him strange powers, like he can astrally project when under stress. He also has no concept of gender because Mars has no women. Enter Dr. Jillian Boardman, an extremely female woman with such hobbies as men and wearing dresses on dates with men. Dr. Jill hears about this mysterious patient whose room is no girls allowed and immediately breaks in to see him because women, am I right? So Michael's grasp on people
Now,
is pretty rudimentary.
That sounds very simplistic, but it's actually a very, very accurate description of the first 4 chapters of the book. Until they reach Jubal Harshaw, nothing of actual substance takes place to the story, with the exception of Michael Valentine Smith realizing that there is a difference between men and women. Previous to this, he had no clue. He thought all people were pretty much the same and that we're all just here to get along, right? But no, he was raised by Martians. He has no clue what people is. It's wild. It's a wild book. It's a good one. I see anybody who hasn't read Stranger in a Strange Land, first of all, you're missing out. The hell are you doing in your life? Second of all, immediately go listen to the audiobook. There are some excellent versions of it on YouTube. Like, lay down and listen to that trash tonight. It's trash. It's unmitigated pulp sci-fi bullshit. But at the same time, it also holds some very dear central truths to liberty and freedom. The idea of religious freedom, the ideas of, I mean, there's a whole bunch First Amendment type stuff there that just resonates well with certain constitutional mentality people. I think you'd love it, especially when they get involved in the sex cult.
This point, but when Jill offers him a glass of water, he's shocked. See, on Mars, water is a pretty rare resource, and sharing water is like a lifelong bond thing called being water brothers. So he accepts, and they share a glass of water, which means they're now bonded for life. Oops. Michael asks Jill if she's one of those women he's heard so much about, and she immediately offers to get naked, as women do. But instead, she leaves to go on a date with her boyfriend, an intrepid reporter named Ben, who's covering Michael's story. So when the governments of the world realize that Michael is both incredibly rich and possibly the legal owner of Mars and start trying to manipulate, imprison, or kill him, even going so.
Another feature of Michael Valentine Smith that no one ever really mentions is he is a super genius on par with like Tony Stark and Lex Luthor. He is the child of 2 of the most brilliant humans who have ever walked the earth. And this is apparently the reason why they reproduced, was because they realized the 2 smartest people ever were in the same room. I should probably knock you up. And that's the amount of, and then it all goes horribly wrong. He ends up being born on Mars, and with the help of the Martians, the baby survives. But that has its own quirks with it. Twerk on a Rick Rock. Saliva. Sex cult. Amen. What? Cat, are you drinking again?
so far as to get a lookalike to pass as him for the news reports, Jill hears all about it from Ben until he's abruptly black-bagged by government bad guys and falls off the face of the earth. But first he tells Jill they should try and get Michael to a friend of his, Jubal Harshaw, an acclaimed author, doctor, lawyer, philosopher, author self-insert, and all-around rad dude who owns a compound and won't let the government push him around, no siree. Anyway, Jill can't figure out what happened to Ben, and while she's investigating, she stumbles on Michael, who's been relocated to a secret room in the hospital in preparation for being...
So there's a feature in this book that doesn't exist in real life. The idea of psychometry has come a long way according to the book, and now people are capable of training to become things called legal witnesses. A witness is an incontrovertible document, an individual who has trained in the proper ways of photographic memory, eidetic memory. They function as minor arbiters and state witness for any given anything that happens. If you're brought up on charges of any type and there was a witness available at the time, they're used like court stenographers. They're used to document all sorts of stuff because they can recall every aspect of the situation. Anyway, Jubal Harshaw, these beautiful women that you hear about, Jubal Harshaw hires them as witnesses. They are professional lawyers in their own right, basically judges and arbiters in their own right, and choose to work for Jubal Harshaw because his hours are completely manageable. They're mostly spent drinking Mai Tais by the pool and occasionally putting on your robes to go witness, right? And so without this aspect of the story being explained, the rest of it just sounds like political frou-frou. It doesn't make any sense. He has an ironclad witness who will not be questioned by any court in the land. If the witness states such and such happened at such and such a time, that is just accepted. It's not like you got to convince nobody.
Being sneakily murdered. Whoops. Jill realizes Ben probably got in too deep and she's on her own. So she unlocks the side door so she can get in later and goes off to prepare her super serious rescue mission, which involves dressing Michael up in a nurse uniform and walking him out the back door. Round of applause. So Jill and Michael take a cab to Ben's place because I know the first place I would hide a political fugitive is the empty apartment of a black bag government prisoner. So Michael takes a bath, which is incomprehensibly luxurious by Martian standards, and he and Jill have some wacky romantic hijinks until two government thugs break down the door and slap Jill, which Michael doesn't like. And it turns out what Michael doesn't like disappears. Both thugs vanish, Jill freaks out, which makes Michael freak out, Michael goes catatonic, and I think it's time for a scene change. Let's zoom out a little bit and get a look at how this future Earth works. The world is divided into a handful of mega nations and some really big religions whose gospels are treated as straight scientific fact. We get a look into the daily life of Secretary General Douglas, who, as it turns out, is not the brains behind the mic-manipulating government operation. That honor goes to his wife, Agnes, a domineering and angry woman who's quite upset they lost Michael, but suggests they simply designate the lookalike as the real one and declare the real Michael to be a fake if and when.
Part of the training for becoming a witness precludes that concept. You're basically barred from personal possessions until your term as a witness is up. It's a public service that you do to exempt you from various taxes and like serving on juries and stuff like that. For life, you never have to serve on a jury. There's other weird little perks that go along with it, not the least of which being the fact that you can actually testify in your own case as your own witness, provided that the event occurred while you were garbed as a witness and there is a witness to say that you were there and to corroborate your evidence, because you as evidence is suspect. But if you've got a witness, that's fine.
When he ever reveals himself.
And you can't pay them off.
That the scientists will be able to tell the difference, but Agnes scoffs that the only true science is astrology. It's time for Deep Thoughts with Heinlein, philosophical observations on society and human nature jarringly inserted into an otherwise immersive narrative. It's like Heinlein is personally lecturing you from just beyond the page. Agnes is like that because Freud was right about everything. That concludes our Deep Thoughts with Heinlein. So Agnes calls up her horoscope lady, Vesey, and orders a horoscope on the man from Mars. Vesey does her best, but finds the process is confounded by the fact that Michael was born on Mars, and the entire astrology setup is kinda Earth-centric, so she just makes something up, which I'm sure real astrologers would never do. Meanwhile, let's turn our gaze to Jubal Harshaw, author, visionary, warrior poet, Renaissance gentleman, who is currently engaged in watching his 3 sexy young secretaries splash around in a pool. As he dictates a short story about a kitten to one of them, his doorman rings to tell him there's a very
all right, up to this point, it has been completely accurate. There is no part of this that is incorrect or that I second guess. I just kind of wish a few more details had snuck in that might explain a little bit of it, but totally accurate. Yes, the old man's drinking a Mai Tai or Long Island iced tea or something by the pool, watching a bunch of young girls frolic around in it. Accurate.
Distraught young woman at the door, and after asking if she's sufficiently hot, Jubal has her buzzed in. The woman, of course, is Jill, who has Michael with her in a suitcase. She couldn't wake him up, so she freaked out, put him in a bag, and drove him to the first place she could think of. Fortunately, when she asks him nicely to wake up, he does, and the two of them fill Jubal in on what exactly is going on. Jubal agrees to help them out and invites him into his home, and on the way, he sagely informs Jill that she's clearly in love with Michael, because what other possible motivation could she have? Oops, did someone forget to give their main character a motivation? Anyway, the story shifts into downtime as Michael and Jill hang out at Jubal's compound and have a grand old time. It's time for more deep thoughts with Heinlein. All human achievement has been motivated by the promise of hot, steamy sex. That concludes our deep thoughts with Heinlein.
Accurate.
So we learn a little more about Michael's upbringing. Among other things, apparently there used to be a fifth planet between Mars and Jupiter that the Martians decided shouldn't exist anymore, and that's why there's an asteroid belt instead. Cool. Anyway, they do a little testing and realize that not only can...
All right, so there's a little bit more to that story. The creator of that particular asteroid belt is a renowned artist who used the fifth planet as his ink to create art in the sky. It killed him, but that's okay. That's just a promotion. She explains that part pretty well. But the idea that destroying an entire planet where there may have been an intelligent race was art. It's like a Sonata or something, you know what I'm saying? And I don't mean the Toyota, I'm talking about the Honda.
Can Michael effortlessly make things vanish by displacing them in the fourth dimension, he can also levitate stuff. He has a hard time communicating how this works in English, so he starts teaching Jill Martian. At some point in all this, we learn that Martians eat their dead, and it's a form of ritual closeness. Leaving a body to rot is seen as this horrible affront. Jubal's handyman, Duke, is horrified, and Jubal tells him, for an entire chapter, that thinking cannibalism is gross is just another form of social brainwashing. And also, Duke probably has cannibal ancestors because...
Absolutely accurate. He spends an entire chapter, in fact, the tail end of the chapter before and a piece of the chapter after also discuss the fact that cannibalism is common in most primitive cultures. That every individual on Earth has an ancestor that practiced cannibalism, if you go back far enough.
Because he's 1/8 Native American. Okay, wow. It's time for more deep thoughts with Heinlein. Cannibalism is actually fine. That concludes our deep thoughts with Heinlein. So Jubal is doing some big complicated plan to help out Michael that involves circumventing hierarchical bureaucracy to demand to speak to a manager, and while he does that, he and Michael have a chat about religion. Michael caught a TV broadcast about the Fosterite religion, which is this kind of hyper-commercialized megachurch. Michael doesn't understand religion at all, in part because Martians know exactly what happens when they die. It's actually a state.
Consider this, the backdrop of this religious overtone from Heinlein's work at this period of time was things like the Heaven's Gate cult and things like that was later, the Jonestown folks. This was right before they moved out to the Congo or where the hell ever they went. I can't remember. They went somewhere horrible, Angola or some shit. And right before all that happened, there was this huge resurgence of evangelism all throughout the U.S. for whatever reason. This is also predating just barely the satanic panic and the D&D craze and slash metal music and stuff like that. And it all kind of loosely ties together in the psychology of the time period that all of this occurred. And this was written at the leading edge of that whole evangelical movement that seemed to be going on at the time.
Stage in their life cycle. When their body dies, they become an old one, which are like the supreme authority on Mars. Dying is essentially a promotion. So while most human religions seek to answer the question, what happens when we die, Michael doesn't understand the question because he already knows. He also doesn't understand the search for a creator of the universe because he doesn't question why things exist. And most importantly, Michael doesn't understand what lying is. To him, falsehoods only happen by mistake. So since the Fosterites on TV said they were the one true way into heaven, to Michael that means they have to know how human old ones work. And Michael's very curious about human old ones because he hasn't hasn't seen any yet. Meanwhile, Michael starts throwing around a Martian word, grok, which is kind of impossible to fully define in English, but means something like really, really understand something, like on the deepest possible level where you make it a part of yourself. It was actually popular enough that it kind of entered the real world, so if you want to impress your 60s friends, feel free to start throwing it around. Anyway, Michael is having trouble grokking religion and God and stuff, but then he suddenly gets it. His definition of God can't be properly communicated in English, but it seems to be kind of omnipresent, because the way he tries to explain it is thou art God, but also I am God. In his worldview, it seems like everything is God. They also talk.
If you've ever watched Battlestar Galactica, you can really appreciate the concept of thou art God, because that's basically how it goes. Is he's a Cylon, she's a Cylon, they're a Cylon. Everybody on the Battlestar Galactica is a Cylon. There's no real people in the entire human army. Not a soul. Okay. Thou art God. And grok needs I could probably do a whole show on the meaning of grok. It's difficult to define in English.
Talk a bit about how Mike doesn't laugh and doesn't understand humor, and how it's a part of humanity he still doesn't quite get. Anyway, the conversation gets interrupted because, oh right, Michael is a fugitive. 2 helicopters fly in, and Jubal initiates his plan. Michael is sent to hide at the bottom of the pool, but decides after a little while that he probably doesn't need to be in his body while he does that, so he projects out, and sees a whole lot of cops with guns, a very angry Jubal, and a lot of complicated lawyer speak he doesn't really get. However, things take a turn when the cops start threatening Jill, so Michael immediately disappears all of them. Whoops.
Don't drink
Jubal
the
reworks
Kool-Aid.
the plan a little and uses the fact that he's friends with Agnes's astrologist to get Secretary General Douglas on the horn just as a second wave of cops arrive. Jubal tells the Secretary General that he's representing Michael as his official lawyer. He wants to settle.
All right. So to grok a thing is to understand it in its fullness. This means to recognize it at its cusp and to completely take it in and own it in one's being, and to fully enjoy it in its being, in its existence and its differences, and then to release it back into the world with your understanding attached to it, to be bequeathed on to the next individual who would choose to grok that concept. Does that clear it up for you? That might have to be a short.
This reasonably and publicly. He wants Ben back, and he wants nobody arrested. Douglas agrees. The cops are called off, some proceedings are arranged, and everyone settles in for the night. That was easy. Jill, Mike, and Jubal talk about kissing, and Jubal educates Mike that he should only kiss pretty young women. It's time for more deep thoughts with Heinlein. Human society brainwashes us into accepting artificial limitations on our lives and our choices. This is wrong. Love should be free and without limit. Unless it's gay, of course. And that concludes our deep thoughts with Heinlein. So they get Ben back. He was just stuck in some dark room and pumped full of drugs for like a week. Nothing to worry about. Ben's week in isolation has made him reevaluate his life, and he realizes he wants to marry Jill. But her relationship with Mike has him conflicted until he realizes that the maternal instincts she's displaying are some of the qualities that originally drew him to her. The other qualities being her boobs and butt. So Ben and Jubal prepare for the proceeding.
Not all the cops were blipped into the fourth dimension wherever the hell they go when he blips them off. It never specifies. It describes it as them traveling away from you from all directions. So you could be standing on 4 sides of them and it would just leave, get smaller and smaller until it went away somewhere. But he sent away all the guns for the most part. It was only a couple of the cops that got disappeared. And since there's no body, there's no evidence. They can't prove anybody did a damn thing. They're just gone. As far as they know, they went on vacation to Tahiti and never came back. Maybe they weren't there that morning. They can't explain it, but...
and realize that Mike has no concept of personal ownership, so all this stuff that makes him a target isn't even stuff he wants. So maybe they can keep him safe by getting rid of it. The day the proceedings arrives, the gang all share a pitcher of water and become water brothers, and while they're getting ready, a Fosterite representative invites Mike to visit their church next week, and Jubal agrees to come along. So this whole proceeding is basically performance.
No, he just displaces them from this time space to another time space. A audible pop is heard when they disappear. That is the vacuum that they once occupied being filled by the air around them. So they are physically gone. They're not just transposed into energy, which would like irradiate the whole backyard. It'd be like a nuclear bomb going off. Did they ascend? I don't think so. This ain't Stargate.
Jubal and Douglas have already agreed, but they need to make a show of it. Basically, they give Douglas control over all of Mike's finances and say Mike can't own Mars because it's inhabited. This fixes literally everything, and the meeting is adjourned. Well, that was easy. The gang all goes and gets lunch, and they talk about Mike and how he might actually be some kind of ambassador or spy for the Martians, and how the Martian ability to make their problems disappear is actually really unsettling and freaky. About time somebody noticed. So now Mike isn't a political prisoner or a fugitive, he's a celebrity. And you know what that means? Fan mail. And you know what that means? Dirty pics from fans. Jill has opinions about this, and you know what that means? It's time for more deep thoughts with Heinlein. One of the great, tragic, insurmountable differences between the sexes is that no woman likes, watches, or even understands pornography. That concludes our deep thoughts with Heinlein. So Mike goes and visits the Fosterite megachurch, which is kind of like if Notre Dame accepted microtransactions. They show off the perfectly preserved body of their founder, which Mike is disturbed by because that's not an old one, that's a corpse nobody's eaten yet.
Right, that's spilled Vienna sausages. My man's a little hungry and he's a little upset. Are you gonna eat that? It's spoiled. It's no good anymore. You can't eat it. What's up? Good to see you in my outcast. Welcome in.
They watch a sermon, which involves a snake dance and a lot of yelling, and then a major higher-up in the church goes to try and convert Mike to Fosterism. But clearly Mike isn't into it because that higher-up is never seen again. The gang go home, and Mike has a lot to think about. So while the others talk religion, Mike goes catatonic and levels up. He develops a much better understanding of human social stuff, and when he goes out by the pool, he finds one of his water brothers. Which one is not specified, but we know she's female.
By the way, that's completely accurate. Basically, he goes into a catatonic state where he communes with himself to grok fully a concept that's been bothering him. That of humanity, genders, humor completely escapes him. The idea of something being funny just doesn't make any sense to him because he's never actually seen something funny. He's heard jokes that he didn't understand, and he's had people tell him funny stories that he doesn't understand why would be funny. Usually they involve hurting someone, and he doesn't think that's funny at all.
Female because they bang, and in the process, she seems to actually grok what he meant with his "thou art God" thing. So it turns out he can communicate his new religious ideas that are untranslatable into English, but he can only do it.
That's awesome,
sex.
dude.
You know what that means? It's sex cult time, baby. So I want to manage some expectations.
Have you read Stranger in a Strange Land?
No, I have not. But after listening to this video, I want to listen to the audiobook of it. It sounds hilarious.
The audiobook is absolutely killer. I think it was the 82 one. The guy that reads it is phenomenal. Methed Up Gator is binge watching Stargate Atlantis. Last time I talked to them, hasn't asked me about Ascension yet, right? Well, a Methed Up Gator might make Ascension before the rest of us do. Chemical assistance and whatnot. She does a magnificent job of explaining it. She just leaves out a few details that would kind of curtail how funny it is the way she's going at it. Because I'm sure it's funny if you don't know what she's talking about, but it's funnier if you do. To me, anyway. Fuck it. I'm enjoying myself. Screw all of y'all.
Here. So everything before this has been complex political machinations and espionage and an exploration of humanity through an alien lens and some genuinely cool sci-fi world building. Everything after this is about a sex cult that gives you superpowers.
Fully accurate.
I'm not exaggerating. I'm not minimizing. That is the entire focus of the book from this point on. Just fair warning. And if for some ungodly reason you have a kid watching this or are a kid watching this,
why do I feel like he's going to become the leader?
Yeah, so...
Accurate. Yet again, but he also teaches a brand new full religion and philosophy that hasn't been. It's very Christian-esque. It's very reminiscent of a Second Coming, and there is actually all right. So you've got jump forwards in time, you got flashbacks in time. This guy, this book actually does a parallel jump. Not in time, but to heaven. Let me let her explain it. It's madness.
Mike, now brimming with confidence, goes to the world with Jill to start spreading the good word of Bang Me. He and Jill briefly work at a carnival and befriend a tattooed lady, Patty, who's a diehard Fosterite until she sleeps with Mike and becomes a diehard Mike follower. Patty's nearly 50, but she looks like she's about 30, and apparently this is...
Which I take to mean that he laid down some of that biblical D Right? Guarantee it. That's the smoking auditor. I can
Hold on. My phone's going crazy.
Oh, that's good. The technical issues aren't mine.
Hey, I can actually chat now.
Yeah, you got to join chat from your StreamYards. I think that's on the lowest pay plan, I believe. I don't know if you can do it from the free plan.
I'm on the free plan as far as I know.
I'm not. And you came in on my invitation.
Okay.
So you might have things like access to cover photos and stuff like that you might not have access to on your StreamYards.
Yeah, I don't know how to do any of that.
Yeah, it's all in the buttons over there, dude.
I'm good.
A life free of worry and purely devoted to happiness and having a good time. This is a big part of Mike's whole thing too, so she's a good fit to the magic Martian sex cult. By the way, these scenes are intercut with footage from actual heaven, where the Fosterite founder Foster and the dude Mike disappeared are observing the proceedings, and it is at this point that Foster suggests that Mike might actually be the Archangel Michael. Spoiler alert. He's right. So anyway, Jill and Mike go to Vegas, and while Mike uses his telekinesis to cheat at gambling, Jill gets bored and decides to become a showgirl, in the process realizing that she was just being a prude before, and she really likes people looking at her nearly naked. It's time for more Deep Thoughts with Heinlein. Exhibitionism is completely natural, and in fact, everybody likes doing it once they get over their social brainwashing. Because this is 100% true, voyeurism, its converse, is also completely natural, and everybody likes it all the time, regardless of circumstance. Anyone who feels uncomfortable with this is brainwashed. That concludes our Deep Thoughts with Heinlein. Also, Jill takes a paragraph or two to share her thoughts on being gay. Oh boy, strap in. See, Mike didn't really have a concept of gender and would probably have had no problem sleeping with a male water brother, but obviously this was completely unacceptable, so Jill carefully coached him into not being appealing to gay people, and her approach to this was having him use his psychic powers to make himself look manlier. Because if there's one thing gay dudes don't like, it's dudes. Jill also really hopes Mike never becomes...
Like, I'm full on, like, not following this concept. You saw her plan, right? Her whole plan there was she's going to make him more manly because that's one thing homosexuals don't like is manly men.
I'm pretty sure the whole culture of bodybuilders is ran by people who are homosexual.
You might not want to make those guys angry. So moving on.
Becomes water brothers with a gay person, but she's pretty sure he'd be able to detect that there's something fundamentally wrong with them and wouldn't let it happen. It's time for more Deep Thoughts with Heinlein. See, love should be free and without boundaries, as long as that free love is never gay. It's okay to socially brainwash someone if it's to keep them from being gay, guys. That's just basic science. That concludes our Deep Thoughts with Heinlein. Anyway, Mike telepathically links Jill's mind with the minds of the dudes in the audience ogling her so she can see how she's seen by guys who find her attractive, and it only reinforces her judgment that voyeurism is totally cool. She's also briefly surprised to see that she finds the other girls attractive when viewed through the eyes of the audience, but don't worry, it's only when she's looking through guys' eyes. Definitely not even a little bit gay, because that would be bad. So anyway, Mike and Jill move on, and Mike is continually frustrated by world religions not actually answering his questions about souls and old ones and stuff, and then in a fit of frustration, he visits a zoo, like you do, and observes a medium-sized monkey get beat up by a big monkey and then turn around and beat up a smaller monkey. At this poignant display of the cycle of abuse, Mike laughs for the first time and realizes that comedy is built on pain, and that humans...
Message. Comedy is built on pain. Offense is a form of pain. Therefore, offensive comedy is a natural extension of humor. I'm going to play that part again so everybody gets it.
But don't worry, it's only when she's looking through guys' eyes. Definitely not even a little bit gay, because that would be bad. So anyway, Mike and Jill move on, and Mike is continually frustrated by world religions not actually answering his questions about souls and old ones and stuff, and then in a fit of frustration, he visits a zoo, like you do, and observes a medium-sized monkey get beat up by a big monkey and then turn around and beat up a smaller monkey. At this poignant display of the cycle of abuse, Mike laughs for the first time and realizes that comedy is built on pain, and that humans laugh because they can't do anything else. So now that Mike understands human suffering, he decides to do something about it by taking his sex cult global. So Mike goes off and gets a diploma mill's worth of degrees and then founds something called the Church of All Worlds. Ben goes to talk to Jubal about said church.
She just says this as if it's something that should be difficult for the man. But remember what I said at the beginning. Born of two of the smartest people to have ever walked the earth. Trained by alien geniuses on Mars who have been alive for millions of years. Possibly the smartest man ever. And literal inhuman intelligence was capable of applying his mind to Martian mathematics and understandings. Just saying. He gets a dozen degrees in a week. All right. He clearly understands the... I mean, you get what I'm saying? Am I wrong? I mean,
worst comes to worst, he can just make all the other religions go poof. So he would win automatically.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But here's the thing about religions. They can't survive their own existence. The founders have to in some way be removed in a way that causes them to be revered. Typically, it's a form of sacrifice. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. What is up, Mid-South Sasquatch? Welcome back, bud. Haven't seen you in a minute. Yeah, I'm doing a long one tonight. I got a few videos over here lined up, and they're just kind of scattergate after this one. What about them? I don't understand the question.
That was back when we were talking about bodybuilders and the sex cult.
Oh, yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised a bit at anything a bodybuilder do, because part of what makes them a bodybuilder is the level of narcissism and vanity to be able to stand there and abuse oneself to achieve it. That's pretty good.
Because he recently visited it and has some thoughts. So the Church of All Worlds is more of a nudist colony / Martian language school with a central nest where the inner circle of water brothers hang out in a big polyamorous pile. The gang has expanded somewhat.
What the hell did you do, dude? How did you get, like, what the hell? Okay, never mind. It's none of my business, dude. You do you, just maybe not quite so hard. You full send something? I full sent something. I'm expecting a strike any day of the week now. You saw that trash. That was terrible, wasn't it? Well, you heard it first here, folks.
Place other religions, it improves them. Mike's also explicitly running his church like a con or a carnival, treating everyone like marks, then drawing in the ones that seem receptive so he can hook them, teach them Martian, and initiate them into the inner circle. It's a cult, baby. That's how they all work. Anyway, Ben and Jubal discuss Mike's telekinetic miracles and how all of his high-level sermons end in orgies, and Ben also recounts how he got to see Jill, who's prettier than ever on account of...
Hold on now. Yes, it's a cult. It works exactly like every human out there expects a cult to work, right? You get indoctrinated into the outer circle, then the inner circle, then further inner circle, and then the ninth circle of freaking hell or whatever it is they end up sticking you in. In this case, however, these people can actually perform miracles to you, for you, on demand, whenever you experience a doubt. I'm not sure that... Cult?
I mean, if they could do that, it sounds more like a religion with superpowers.
With superpowers.
Sign me up.
Exactly. Let's go learn some Martian. I shall grok with thee into its fullness. Yes, sir.
Learning Martian and banging Mike. She explained to Ben how it's not really a religion or a cult. They're just trying to show people the truth. Wow, that's so funny. That's what every religion and cult says. Oh, by the way, there's this other lady in the cult who's a former fosterite named Dawn. And she and Jill have been using their psychic powers to look more like each other. This is never explained. I think it's just something Heinlein is into. So Ben hangs out with Jill and Mike and the rest of the gang and has a very uncomfortable time being the only guy at the perma orgy who is wearing pants because apparently clothes and privacy are categorically disallowed in Heinlein's utopia. There's barely a concept of consent here because none of these people in the nest would ever say no.
Right. She got it accurate right. There's barely a concept of consent. There comes a point in the religion where you surpass earthly possessions completely. You live completely within the bounds of the church. Within this circle, everything is free. There are literal barrels of money right next to the door, next to where they have fresh, brand new suits and clothes and gowns for sizes for everybody involved. And whenever you go to leave, make sure you grab some money on the way out so you can give it to homeless people and stuff. Literally, that's the purpose of the big, huge barrels of money next to the door, is to be taken out and used in the casino and given to waitresses and for tipping valets over far too much, so they don't have to do that silly work anymore, so they can come join the church. That's a pretty good gimmick. You mean to tell me that I can live forever, be beautiful, super genius, learn 19 languages, have sex all the time with beautiful women and men for that matter, and all I got to do is show up? They don't even say you have to worship with them. You show up and it becomes a good idea to do so. It's a cult. She's accurate.
No, so why would you ask? And Ben, who is saying no to a lot of this, is being treated like he'll learn or come around. For the record, he does not, but that doesn't stop someone from having sex with him anyway. Heinlein, did you just write one of your male leads being assaulted by your sex cult and treat it like it was a good thing? Anyway, Ben tells Jubal all about what's up in the nest, and after a winding explanation that he's being a prude and heterosexual polyamory is the one true way to really live, man, Ben is convinced and runs off to join the sex cult. Quick 180. Meanwhile, the Martians sever their psychic link with Mike. They've learned all they can about humanity and will now deliberate over whether or not to destroy the Earth. But who wants to hear about that boring old junk? Back to the sex cult, please. So people keep trying to arrest Mike for various sex-related crimes, but for some reason, those people never seem to make it to court. Wow, Mike's really getting cavalier with the murder. Are we sure this isn't a horror story? Then while Mike is in jail for a little bit, the Fosterites declare a holy...
That's fully accurate. There comes a point in time in this cult where it's decided that most of the people in government are probably bad people. And even if we do get a couple of good people in the mix, I mean, we're going to solve the whole problem. So, judge, jury, executioner. But furthermore, they can read minds.
It sounds like he's going to save the planet from the Martians by eliminating all governments and religions.
Accurate, fully accurate. You're not wrong. He's going to overtake religions and the function of government through a superior thought process and application to reality.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that you can't watch movies from because I'll make it through the first 20 minutes of the movie and figure out the rest while never have seen it.
I'm bad about that. I worked in movies, rentals and stuff when I was younger. And so it's rare that I come across a plot that I'm not like, oh, it's just like I Spit on Your Grave, but with snow. Gotcha. And if you've never seen the original I Spit on Your Grave, that's a horror. Back to the show. This is a horror as well, because we literally have an all-powerful demigod level intellect with psychic powers who has not completely taken over the world just out of hand. Instead, he's gone around and showed people, quote unquote, a better way to think. Okay.
Making the sheep up is always a bad thing.
Yeah. Too many drugs in your younger years. Amen, brother. I feel your pain.
Down their church. Oh no. But it's okay because everyone used their magical Martian mind powers to teleport to safety. Because they can teleport now. That's the power of heterosexual free love, baby. Jubal goes to visit the sex cult in the hotel they're currently using as a home base. He also learns that Mike escaped from prison no problem, and while his body is safely in the hotel, his astral self is out there screwing with the Fosterites and making all their guns disappear and stuff. Man, it'd be kind of cool to see all this stuff instead of hearing about it later. So Jubal hangs out with the...
And no shit, this entire section of this book is covered by, and while Mike was out there, he took care of that shit and moved on. You just hear about the fact that there's apparently wars being fought in the third world between cartels and Michaelists. And the Michaelists are winning hands down because they don't actually use guns. Think about that. There's this conversation that goes down between Jenny and the other chick, Jennifer and the other chick, about how many people they killed yesterday. They don't call it killing; they call it eliminating. They're like they send them to where everyone else went. Horror. And these are flighty girls. Think about it.
This other dimension has to be getting full by now.
Other than having a good heterosexual time, are all gorgeous psychic superhumans now. And then when he goes to bed, Dawn shows up and coerces him into sleeping with her even after he turns her down 3 times. Heinlein, did you just write your self-insert character being assaulted by your sex cult and frame it like it was a good thing? So anyway, Mike tells Jubal that the Martians might show up to wreck the Earth in about 5,000 years, but humanity has a chance at survival if they embrace the true, unique power of humanity that is heterosexual love. Yep, the one thing unique to the human race. That's it, you've cracked the code. Good job. Nobody tell Mike about every other species with a spinal cord. Also, Jill has gotten over her silly little murder is wrong hang-up, so she and the gang have been casually disappearing anyone who realizes they're hiding in the hotel, and also any major government officials they grok as wrong. Last night, they killed 150 people. I promise this is not framed as a horror story. I promise. Anyway, Jubal reassures Mike that his cult is literally unstoppable and will easily outcompete the rest of the human race, and that once all the non-believers die out, Mike's superpowered family will inherit the Earth. Mike is pleased and then goes outside to deal with the angry mob that's been accumulating. So Mike is illuminated by a golden sunbeam.
All right. So in chat, I want to know what you think happens to Mike when he goes out to deal with the angry mob outside, the church. Do they revere him as the second coming and lead themselves on to glory and victory? B, do they buy him a steak dinner? Or C, do you reckon they waste him upon sight with all of their weapons simultaneously? Which one do you think it is? You're still muted, bro.
I think he just gets teleported back to Mars.
All right, so there's a whole bunch of videos out there that purport to tell you what happens immediately afterwards. It ends really succinctly with him being ripped apart by gunfire. I'm not even joking. He goes into full description about how the body parts splatter across the freaking steps of the communal house and how he's the only one directly targeted, and like it rips him to pieces. But remember, he's not human anymore. He thinks Martian, right?
Vanishes all of his clothes and is immediately killed. Nobody but Jubal is upset by this because nobody but Jubal thinks death is real anymore. So Jubal is upset and goes to kill himself, but Mike has other ideas and intervenes, confirming that, yep, death isn't real, Mike is totally still around, and it ain't no thing. So the gang cooks Mike into soup, because remember, Martians are cannibals, and that's A-okay. And Jubal has some Mike soup and is writing a new book about Mike.
Hold on. I got something to say about that. They go to cook Mike in the soup. Now, remember what I said about him being blasted all over the steps of his own. Like, there's discussions of grenades and rockets being fired at him. They use shredder shotguns and sinking bullets. This is the future, baby, right? They don't just kill him. They destroy his physical anatomy to the point of being unrecognizable. So somebody had to go out there with like a push broom and a squeegee.
I think it's funny they thought it was a good idea to turn him into a martyr. That always worked out great.
No, he's not a martyr. In this case, he's the first real human old one. Remember, in his faith, it's a promotion to die. You become an old one, which is better than being a nymph. I'm telling you, man, if you don't grasp these very basic concepts to the story sounds absolutely maddening. Sex cult, of course he's a martyr. The only way he could advance further in his quote unquote journey was by being martyred, in this case, becoming the actual physical embodiment of their saint that you can actually go and talk to by going to the church and praying because he's hanging out over there.
His astral form.
Right? And also because he's trained in true Martian, he has the ability to occupy multiple spaces simultaneously because he is astral. So he can be at all of the churches all of the time.
Oh,
dude, it's wicked. It will break your brain open.
A Martian named Smith, which, fun fact, was the working title of this book. So, yeah, in case you weren't convinced that Jubal was a full-on author insert, he canonically wrote the book he's in. Anyway, the postscript informs us that the Martians do eventually decide to destroy the Earth, but at that point the humans are all Mike's superpowered free-loving descendants and easily fight him off. And also that Mike ascends to heaven, once again becoming the Archangel Michael. So in case you were wondering if we were supposed to question the morality of his actions, it's fine.
Nah.
He was a literal angel the whole time.
Infallible.
Whee!
Oh, so he gets to break the fourth wall and write his own book at that. This sounds like a version of Deadpool.
You're kinda. If I remember right. I might not be right on that. I shouldn't say that out loud. All right, so the next one. Simon the Magpie has been playing with electronic doohickeys to try to make a new instrument. He's been doing this for about a year and a half now. He's got 168,000 subscribers. He's made a dozen new instrument types that are used for various things. You'll find some of their sound effects on like YouTube and stuff in the audio library. And there's his link if you want to go check out the rest of his channel and what he does. This particular tidbit is some creepy sounding shit.
I'm Magpie, and welcome to a follow-up video, staying true to form. Because in my last video, I had this amazing experience experimenting with a talkbox and just feedbacking with it. So plugging the microphone, where we mic up the tube from the talkbox back into the talkbox, and then playing that feedback, sort of reacting to it or like performing with it. I don't really know how to phrase it. I suggest you just go watch the video because it's incredible, at least as far as
Agreed.
the experience
It is really
of
neat.
doing it goes. At least for me. If anyone else tries it out, I want to hear from you. Join the Discord, link in the description, and let me know. However, I did see so many comments in the comment section in regards to, but if you make the tube longer, will it have a different note? Like, will you play around with different pitches? And that got me thinking, yes, perhaps. But I would really enjoy being able to sort of control that. How would I go about doing that? I happen to have this Suzuki Andes 25F. It's like a melodica, but with flutes, meaning that each and every key here opens up a flute of varying length. And if you play it, which I can do really quickly, maybe this is easier actually than... It sounds like you would expect, but not what you actually would pay for it. I have a video on this one from a while back, and it's quite marvelous, but very expensive, sadly. So that's kind of dumb. But I figured, what happens if I plug the tube that just happens to fit perfectly from this talkbox into the Suzuki Andes and mic it up? Well, I don't know. What do you think would happen? Should we perhaps try it out? Maybe I did already try it out, and maybe it was amazing. And maybe I should warn you that the sounds in this video might be a bit wild.
They're weird. Crazy. They're really strange.
Let's explore. Yeah, if we engage, nothing happens. And I don't know what I've set it at, but Apparently, I don't need to know.
I tell you what it reminds me of. One of those glass harmonica things that you used to see played around at fairs and stuff sometimes. You know, like the wet glass. I think it's called an harmonica. I think so.
I don't know, but make sure you put a sound advisory before you post this video just before this.
Oh, fuck them. Let them get triggered.
Especially if they're wearing headphones.
There we go.
Like it works. It kind of works. Like it looks on to the note that is the same note, I think. I should try. So if we do the lowest note. Like it's the same note.
That's some straight movie creepy shit.
It kind of sounds like it's playing the flute. It's like this brand new type of
It
instrument.
sounds like something from a horror movie. It really does. Just before the guy jumps out to kill you.
In a
It's
somewhat
great.
controlled manner, play the feedback because it's not able to push through unless I engage a key, which is really cool.
So it's the echo from the previous note. Hold on. It's the echo from the previous note that triggers the following note, causing a binaural note out of sequence with most binaural situations. That's wild. That's wild.
But it doesn't unless I press. And if you engage more drive, then it's really like very, very experimental. It's not like I can go in and play a melody. I don't think, or I could kind of, but that's not what you would use this for
Sasquatch
anyways. It's like
secrets.
this
Welcome in,
bizarre
bud.
horror type instrument. And right now I'm currently just doing this one feedback, but since I'm going through a mixer, it's really easy with just a patch cable now to set up a second feedback loop. So
I'm waiting for the color lines to come up on the TV.
Right? I'm totally waiting for it to glitch out on us. That's the kind of sound when my computer crashes.
It reminds me of the beginning of what's that old show where they did a whole bunch of different crazy stuff where they control the horizontal and vertical.
Yes, sir. You are fully accurate. Wow. Sasquatch is not immune to that. Sounds like a freaking crash. Ooh. Ah.
It sounds like he simplified half the songs or notes I've heard as a child on old TV shows.
Right. All of those weird discordant bobs from the old TV shows like The Outer Limits and
that's it.
Yeah, no, that dude. Anytime I'm backstage ever since it became available on Amazon Prime, I think. Anytime I'm backstage, it's the Outer Limits playing. I mean, some of those are truly excellent. Ah!
It's
Sorry,
my
folks.
Game Boy with its distorted freaking.
It's like Game Boy trying to read Skyrim files. All right, it's enough of that trash. But anyway, he's got a really interesting channel over there. He does all kinds of weird shit, like a whole bunch of stuff. So next choice.
Oh, my fiance just said a good thing. It sounds like the old AOL dial-up.
You're not wrong. It does kind of. We have Why Did This Band Fake an International Tour? Anomaly documentaries. We have You Won't Believe These Hilarious Dog Memes. Episode 1, by the way, from Acorns. Family Flees in Terror, but They Don't Know Why, from Asinine Asylum. Let's go with that one. It's short and sweet. All right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's 185 subscribers there, folks. So y'all go tell him how sweet it is. Because he's actually done a pretty good thing here with this video. He found a story that I have read about once before, but I've never seen actually shown on YouTube at all. And he's done a pretty good job of it for somebody that's apparently just starting out. No, with the sound, damn it.
Fear for their
Although,
an Australian
dear God, somebody go buy this man a mic.
family suddenly fled their farm in fear for their lives. They left behind their cell phones, all of their belongings, and disappeared without any notice. The strange thing is, no one knows why they fled in such a hurry. Not even
Can
the
you give me
family
some gang
themselves.
signs?
This case made national news in Australia at the time.
Not you.
as their
You
friends
good.
and family
I've seen
couldn't
you.
Figure out why the entire family.
Come on, baby.
disappeared
Give me
out of
something.
nowhere. This story got even more bad.
All right, hold on. Wait, let me
Each
do
family
this.
member
Let me
began
do this.
turning up
Let me do this
one by
right.
one.
We're going to start that back over after we get him up here.
Morning.
All right, that's good enough. We'll accept that.
How's it going?
You
That's
always
all right. How are you?
pretty spiffy.
I'm doing all right.
You hope.
Oops. Let me set this to the right spot. It's a smoking auditor up there. And I will reuse this one for... What channel are you on currently?
Me.
Grim Reaper Radio Show?
Grim Reaper Network.
I hate you with all of your long ass names.
By the way, it's capital R.
You can simplify mine to TSA.
How both of you.
An Australian family suddenly fled their farm in fear for their lives. They left behind their cell phones, all of their belongings, and disappeared without any notice. The strange thing is, no one knows why they fled in such a hurry. Not even the family themselves. This case made national news in Australia at the time, as their friends and family couldn't figure out why the entire family disappeared out of nowhere. This story got even more baffling when each family member began turning up one by one.
I want to go into this man's studio and move his light. You see that, right?
I mean, it's perfectly on his left side.
Hey, man, profiling like nobody else, bro. I'm just saying he does excellent work, and it's sad that a single light position is throwing my whole fucking attention span off.
That's because way you just accept it, move on.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, everybody. He does excellent work. Go check him out by all means, please.
I just want to know why the aliens kidnapped this family.
Psychotic states of mind. Please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and remember to turn on notifications so we can continue growing this channel together. And now, sit back and enjoy the bizarre story of the Tromp family road trip.
Asinine Asylum. I absolutely love it.
Mark and Jacoba Tromp ran a successful farm and earth-moving business in Melbourne, Australia, with the help of their 3 adult children, Rihanna, Mitchell, and Ella. One day, on August 29, 2016, the entire family of 5 piled into their family car and fled the farm with no warning. The only person who brought a phone with them was Mitchell. However, 18 miles down the road, his parents made him throw his phone out the window. They were now completely technology-free. It wasn't long before their family and friends became aware of their mysterious disappearance and called police. When police searched their home, they discovered that the inside of the home was in complete disarray. Financial records were spread out across the home, which indicated to police that they may have taken some financial documents with them. They left behind their cell phones, passports, and credit cards. No one knew where they went or why. The Tromps drove straight to Bathurst, which was about 500 miles away from their home.
All right. So to recap up to this point, on a random Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day it was, the whole family packed up all their crap in a mad rush and hauled ass down the road for no explicable reason.
Nothing unusual in that.
They're not Americans.
Yeah, they're Australian, aren't they?
Yeah, that's close enough. They're kind of like the honorary Florida men of the Southern Hemisphere, I think.
Yeah.
Seemingly inexplicably, this is where they left Mitchell, and the rest of the family continued on. They headed east to the Jenolan Caves, which is a popular tourist destination. Once they arrived at the caves, Rihanna and Ella decided to separate from their parents. They went nearby and stole a car, then drove south to the town of Goulburn. It was there that they reported their parents missing. However, this wasn't where their story would end. Instead, Rihanna and Ella also decided to separate from each other. At a gas station, Ella said she wanted to go back home and feed her horses. She became the first member of the Tromp family to be found when she showed up at the family home and was greeted by police. By now, the local news had been made.
All right, so I'm very curious how she got back to the family home. They were 800 miles or 800 kilometers away. I have no idea how far that is, but it seems like farther than you would walk.
Transportation, transported, an alien came along.
Aliens. Blaming aliens.
Made aware of the mysterious road trip, and Australians were left perplexed by this strange vacation. Mitchell, who took a series of trains in order to make it back home, arrived the following morning. Ella and Mitchell were in relatively normal mental states, not really understanding the random trip, but otherwise unaffected. The same couldn't be said for Rihanna. An hour outside of Goulburn, a man was driving his utility vehicle to a doctor's appointment when he felt something kick the back of his seat. When he looked in the back seat, he was shocked to find Rihanna lying there. The driver pulled over and asked if she was okay, but something was clearly wrong with her. She was in a catatonic state and seemed to be very unaware of her surroundings. She answered his question with no, and he called for help. She was then transported to a psychiatric facility for care and reportedly didn't know her name or where she was. There was now an interstate search for the remaining 2 Tromps, Mark and Jacoba. By this point, they had driven roughly 370 miles to the Victorian town of Wangaratta, where they became separated from one another as well. Jacoba headed north, by means which are still unknown, and ended up nearly 220 miles away in the town of Yass. She was finally discovered here, wandering around in an agitated state. She was taken to the hospital to be psychiatrically evaluated and later transferred to a hospital in Goulburn where Rihanna was also being treated. Now there was just one Tromp left to be found. Around 10 p.m. in Wangaratta, a young couple was driving around playing Pokemon Go when a car sped up behind them and began tailgating them dangerously close. The car was so close to the rear bumper that they could barely see his headlights. The couple pulled the car over, but the car behind them pulled over as well. The couple then saw Mark Tromp exit the car and begin running toward them, before suddenly stopping for a moment, staring at them, and then running off into a park. Police also began investigating a series of break-ins in this area around the same time, but there's never been any evidence to suggest whether or not this was related. Nearly a week after the mysterious trip, Ella and Mitchell did a news interview where they stated that their dad doesn't want to be found because he's afraid people are after him, but they desperately pleaded for him to return home. Finally, Mark was found beside a road near the Wangaratta airport. The Tromps had been successfully rounded up. After being questioned and given a mental evaluation, he was released and handed over to his brother, who was a police officer. While they drove away, Mark was photographed giving the middle finger to spectators, though he later apologized for this. After an investigation into the incidents surrounding the Tromp family's mysterious trip, police found no threats to the family. There was no evidence that the family belonged to a religious or spiritual cult, and there was no evidence of drug use. They also had no diagnosed history of mental health disorders.
I think I figured it out. It's the Australian CIA testing out LSD on a family to see what they can make them do.
All right, so I want to point out the chick that left the car in freaking wherever the hell they were, that just went home, that had apparently no issues getting home.
Wasn't described. The brother was okay. They described the brother was getting home via train.
But it never specified how she got home. She hopped out halfway to where they were going.
Yeah.
Just poof, magically got home. I guess maybe she abided by the rules of the road.
Yeah, strange but true. That's what it reminds me of.
Right. Okay, so looking at this place, I have a theory. So somebody served mushrooms that night. They were locally gathered by one of the kids, probably. Temporary madness. People are after him. Psychotic break in the middle of the afternoon. Kind of fits.
Maybe the youngest one, the girl that made it home, just had a tolerance for magic mushrooms and LSD,
Or
which is why she was able to work through it.
She was just going along for the ride because Pops went crazy. She didn't get why, but she does what she's told. So she did it until she thought, wait, you motherfuckers done lost y'all shit. I'm just going to go home and feed my horse. All right. A real horse girl would understand. And so she hopped out, hitchhiked her way to wherever she had to go. I mean, crazy, isn't it?
So you reckon it was a bit the wrong mushrooms, eh? Mm.
Well, it happened in the spring. I don't know a whole lot about Australian mushrooms, but I guarantee you they're all trying to kill you. And everybody's an expert. All it takes is a small error of judgment. Next thing you know, Pops is over there sharpening his shotgun.
I mean, they have how many poisonous snakes and freaking spiders over there?
They've got a plant. They've got a bush that'll make you kill yourself. It is called the Gimpy plant.
I thought you were going to say the suicide bush.
People think maybe this sudden episode might have been brought on by some of the chemicals they used on their farm, or that their water supply could have been contaminated with toxins. Another theory that was brought up by a neighbor of the Tromps is that stress could have set this off, as they were currently in the process of renovating their family home and were running into a few problems along the way. The official theory from police is that the family possibly suffered from collective delusions known as folie à deux, which means madness of two in French. This is a type of shared psychosis in which one person begins to show signs of delusions.
Have you ever witnessed that kind of madness take place?
No, this is...
All right,
I don't understand how. Well, I can see the logic behind what the official
Hold
reasoning
on.
is.
I used to run around with a bunch of really weird meth heads. One of these guys lived way out in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody around, and she married this chick I grew up with, and they both went on to have to be like happily married little meth heads, right? They both sat out there in their little trailer, and they sat around and they worked, and they had jobs, and they had lives, and they did a whole bunch of meth. My boy over here was a bit psychotic, and he would occasionally go into like these really crazy flights of fancy about people creeping through the woods trying to find him. And understand, this man was on like 800 acres of uncharted freaking wilderness that he had rat holed a camper off into. And for all the world, these people would every couple of few weeks, based on paycheck, go completely insane, be absolutely convinced that a random different person was out to get them, including myself, which I've always found highly humorous and always pissed them off when I laughed maniacally at them. Because by the time I got to the point where we were talking about this shit, generally I was tweaking out my fucking gourd too and was no longer making sense to myself. So,
Do you ever?
Sometimes I find myself making more sense than others.
The delusions are then passed to one or more people in their tight-knit group. Ella and Mitchell have said that they still don't understand why this happened and have never seen this before. But all they know is they were suddenly in fear for their lives and felt the need to flee.
By all accounts, the Trump family has reportedly returned to a normal life since then, and they're successfully running their family farm once again. Still, it's hard not to imagine that the memory of this bizarre incident probably still lingers in some part of their brain, and they likely still have a fear that this episode might return again someday. Thanks for tuning in to another video. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button.
You're welcome,
turn on
bud.
notifications.
I appreciate you making that video, dude. I've read about that case, but I've never had that much information dumped on me at once. So what do you think?
Charge him with wasting police time.
Or is that what it is? They went on vacation and nobody noticed?
Yeah, probably.
Shedded a couple of kids and a catatonic daughter along the way? I don't get it.
I still think Australians' version of CIA came along with a new type of gas for LSD and wanted to test it out. I'm guessing it was pretty successful.
I don't get why they locked up the family, some of the family in the psychiatric wing.
Well, one of them went catatonic and couldn't function for herself. She was no longer doing. That's the thing, is they didn't all come back okay, and they can't explain what happened in the first place. So there are some mushrooms and toadstools in the world that can cause all manner of brain damage and delusions, and it doesn't have to be any of the actual magic mushrooms. Some of the, what was it, that damn toadstool, that one there, that's close. They don't cause tripping. They cause you to die by reducing the amount of blood flow to different parts of your brain. But if you don't take a lethal dose, you will full on have a fucking religious experience every
time.
Kind
of like the Mario mushroom that's in one of the freaking rainforests. It's a spotted mushroom that has a neurotoxic that will kill you within 30 seconds of eating it.
Well, you now just explained something to me, Deb, regarding having an experience. The number of people who've joined Scientology and then left afterwards because the effects have worn off. That makes perfect sense to me now.
Right.
You cleared that one up for me. Thank you.
I hear tell they have an ayahuasca event they do in order to like be part of the C Corps or whatever they call them. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. We might take a look in Scientology one day. Today is not that day. I've actually gone an hour over. Y'all got anything y'all want to say to everybody?
Have a good night and see you all next week or next time Sasquatch does a live.
Probably Thursday.
hopefully I'll be able to catch it. I'm lucky. I woke up and you were still live. It's not often I catch you.
I've been trying to run them a little bit later because I'm hearing a little bit of that from folks over there in the UK. I got a few people that are like, well, I come in right as you were getting off. And I'm like, okay. So I might not do as many shows, but I'm going to try to do them later to try to pick up on some of y'all over there.
Later and longer. Because these that you run are really interesting at times.
Yeah, no, I've been trying to figure out how to go back and utilize the different reaction footages from the different aspects of the shows that I do to have individual videos to upload on certain topics. I've gotten pretty good at just discussing the topic at hand. Tonight's not one of those nights.
Well, I just want to say thank you to you for the introduction video that you did. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate it.
You see what I mean about getting the original?
Yes, and somebody else has done something to it as well and done a different version of it, which I thought was quite nice.
Fantastic.
If I get the opportunity, I will play that this week. But yes, thank you for that, and it's nice, always nice to come up and say hello to you.
Absolutely, man. Always
and
will.
to catch Smoking Auditor as well, and a few others who are in the chat. Some people I know, some people I don't, but thank you for taking part and letting me be part of the show.
Absolutely. I'm gonna set y'all backstage for a second. I'll be right back with you. I've got the link over here pinned in chat if anybody wants to jump backstage and have a private discussion, more private than this, I suppose. Y'all pretty much know how this part of it goes. It's one of those things that I got to poke over here. I've moved everything around so many different places. How did I lose my outro completely? Okay, I got you.
Sorry. Good news, though. We're going to have to move the party somewhere a little bit more private, but you're all invited. Lorenzo will give you the details. Yeah!
Hey, she was a cutie in a sundress. I told her I just had to confess. I got a crush on you, darling. Them long tan legs got me falling.
Why are you still here? Y'all are just hanging around in chat for no apparent reason. You go hit the link and join us backstage, and we'll go have a drink or something. It'll be awesome. I might take you to my Waffle House. We'll go hit on some waitresses together. Be awesome.